afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the fourth day of the Jornada Nacional 2022. As you know, my name is Ale Alfaro, your host for this great event, organized by PRONI with the support, of course, of British Council. In the sessions yesterday, we saw how to be prepared with teaching with a teaching toolkit, how to use mindfulness as a tool in the classroom, and the challenges of remote teaching, which are a lot. As you know, you can go back to watch any of the sessions of the week if you have missed them. Once again, a quick reminder before we begin. As you know, please, you are welcome to post your comments and questions in the chat. Just make sure that you maintain a very respectful and positive communication among everyone. Remember that we also have short 10-minute breaks between sessions at the end of the day. We will post the link to your daily quiz. So remember to answer and register your participation. Okay, make sure that your name, your surname, and email address are correctly spelled. Otherwise, you might not be getting your certificate. Well, that's enough for announcements because today we will begin our sessions with a great conference or talk. For this session, we have Ms. Grace Buzzy, a teacher and academic manager at the British Council. Welcome, Ms. Grace.
Hi everybody, thank you so much Ale for that introduction. So my name is Grace, a teacher and academic manager, and today I'm going to share with you a presentation on how to create a learner-centered classroom. So the reason I think that this is an important thing to consider at the moment is that as teachers, I'm sure you all experienced when we moved to online teaching, it meant that students had to become a lot more independent, perhaps than they were used to in the past. So this meant a lot more time spent studying independently. Perhaps there was more responsibility put onto them when they were having to do their homework, for example. They didn't always have that teacher presence like they did in the classroom. And even though now many of us have returned to the physical classroom, I think it is really important that our students are still learning this skill, learning how to become independent. So let me begin by going over the session aims. So we're going to start by defining the learner-centered classroom. Then we will look at some of the benefits. We'll discuss the challenges and hopefully how to address these challenges. And then I'll go through some practical ideas for creating a learner-centered classroom. Even though these ideas are focused on a physical classroom, they can, of course, be adapted for online teaching as well. So I'm going to begin with a question. Now, I can see lots of people watching on YouTube, so I would love to involve you in this session as much as possible. So this question, what is a learner-centered classroom? Before I answer the question, I would love to see your ideas. So if you could just write a comment into the chat on YouTube or wherever you're watching, what do you think is a learner-centered classroom? How would you define that? So I'll just wait a moment or two to give everyone time to think. What does that mean to you? What is a learner-centered classroom? So I can see Rosa said to think about the learner's needs. Exactly. Yep, I completely agree with that. Professor Jorge, the most important is the learner. Absolutely, the student is the center. Becoming more independent. Okay, great. I'm seeing loads of wonderful responses. So let's see. So in a learner-centered classroom, the focus is shifted from the teacher to the learners so that they take a more active role in their education experience. The teacher gives students more freedom to follow their interests and focus on what they value. This does not mean that the teacher lets the students do anything they want. Of course, we have to have some parameters in place, but broadly, it means that students have more freedom. And the goal is to develop autonomous and independent learners who can take responsibility for their own learning. So like I mentioned before, during the pandemic, when we were all teaching and learning online, we need to develop this autonomy so that learners can be prepared for that situation maybe happening again and just for their future life skills. So I've got a useful diagram here to demonstrate learner-centered versus teacher-centered. So as you can see in the first left-hand image, a teacher-centered classroom, we have the teacher with their knowledge, their experience, directly passing this to the students. Okay, and then if we look on the right-hand side in the student-centered classroom, the teacher is in there with the students, and you can see that they are collaborating. So that exchange of knowledge, experience, and beliefs, it's more of an exchange between the teacher, between the students, and between everybody, rather than just coming from the teacher. So I hope that gives a nice visual to illustrate what we're going for when we say a learner-centered classroom. So why is this important? Once again, if you could write your ideas in the comments, I would love to see your ideas. Why do you think a learner-centered classroom is so important? What are the benefits? So based on your experience, perhaps, what benefits can you see? Yeah, so Francisco's mentioned planning projects that students enjoy. Exactly, yeah, and I will talk about project work a little bit later. Mariana said independence, exactly, engagement, self-regulation, develop thinking skills. Yeah, really good ideas. Let's add some more ideas to that. So students develop transferable skills required for lifelong learning. So the skill of independence and autonomy is so important because very often students sit in a traditional classroom. They're more used to having the teacher tell them and teach them, and their role in the classroom is quite passive. As soon as we leave school, we go to college, university, we get a job, we don't necessarily have that important skill of autonomy and independence. So it's really important to teach that while they're in school. It encourages students to be curious in the learning process. So I think some people in the comments have mentioned about motivation. So if our students are involved in the learning process and they're more curious, they'll be more motivated, and of course their learning will be more effective. Builds a sense of community amongst classmates. So in a learner-centered classroom, there's more room for interaction between the students. It's not just one channel of communication between the teacher and the student. The communication, like we saw in that diagram, is opened up to the rest of the class and helps to build that sense of community in the classroom. And learners are shown that what they feel, what they value, and what they think are important. And if the learners feel like we are taking their feelings into account and we're considering what they think is important, that will in turn help with motivation. I can see Yolanda's written, sometimes they are the experts. Yes, exactly. Sometimes the students can teach us. So it's nice to give them that opportunity. And finally, it builds independence, like everyone has mentioned, and the ability to problem solve. So it helps if the students are not always relying on the teacher. They're not always going to the teacher to solve their problems, answer their questions, because as I mentioned, once they leave school, they have to do that for themselves. So we want to teach them how to be independent as soon as possible. So here are some benefits. I can see people writing lots more. Emotions are important in the learning process. Absolutely, I completely agree. So thank you everyone for contributing. Oh, we've got one more. Students learn how to communicate their understanding. Okay, so if the students can communicate what they've learned, how they've learned it, and assess how well they have learned something, that helps everybody involved in the process. So now we've talked about the benefits, but what are the challenges? Of course, there are challenges to implementing this style of learning. So what does everyone think? What challenges are involved in creating a learner-centered classroom? Maybe you can speak from your own experience when you've tried to implement some kind of learner-centered activity. What challenges do you face in trying to do that? So think about perhaps the type of activity, think about the interaction between students. What do we think? Cesar said they have different ways of learning. Yep, absolutely. We do have to try and accommodate lots of different ways of learning. To have a new point of view about our teaching, yes, some students might not be used to this new style. Planning and resources are needed in advance. Yep, absolutely. For certain types of activities, they might require more planning. Different students. Teacher Ale has said keeping them on task. Yes, so of course, once we give that freedom and responsibility to our students, it can go the wrong way if we give them too much freedom. So yeah, keeping them on task can be tricky. Let's have a look. So the first one, I'm sure you'll all find that teachers do not always have the freedom to let their learners choose. If you are teaching to a strict curriculum, you have certain goals that you need to reach, you can't always afford to give your students the freedom that you would like. So it's about trying to find the particular activities where we can give freedom and doing it then. Students need to be taught how to be autonomous. This is not something that they will know how to do naturally. We need to teach them before we suddenly give them all this independence. We have to teach them how to do it. Some students prefer being told what to do. So this goes back to the idea of the traditional classroom where the teacher is in charge and the teacher teaches and tells the students what to do. Some of them may like that. They might not enjoy having the decision put onto them. And it can be a big responsibility. So learners need to have the right tools and the teachers need to have trust. And I think this is something we all encountered during the pandemic when we were distant from our students. It was quite a big responsibility and they needed to know how to manage it, how to be independent. And there was a certain level of trust needed from the teachers to trust that responsibility of learning to the students. So I'm now going to go over some practical ideas to create a student-centered classroom. We will also talk about some important things to keep in mind when you implement these ideas. And remember, although most of these have been designed for a physical classroom, there's no reason why they can't be adapted and used online as well if needed. So the first thing I want to talk about is choice. And like I mentioned earlier, this is not always something we can give, but it's great to look for times in our lessons when we can give choice, and let's see how we can do that for them. So first, I'm going to show you an example lesson, okay? This is, you could say, an English literature lesson. So the students have been reading a book, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. I'm sure many people know that book. And in the lesson, the students read a chapter from the book and then complete various activities. So maybe some vocabulary and grammar activities related to the story. And next, they must complete a creative writing assignment. So you know that the outcome for your students is to write. It needs to be a writing activity. And there needs to be a creative element to the writing activity. Now, instead of the teacher deciding this is what we will do, I invite you to consider a choice board. I'm sorry, you can't quite see all of the slide there, but I will read it for you. So a choice board is when we have the flexibility to allow students to choose the type of activity they do. So you can see that all 4 options involve writing and they involve an element of creativity, but they are all slightly different. So we've got the option of making a comic strip of what happens next, write the next scene for a play version of the book, write a poem about the themes in the chapter, and the last one is write a diary entry for one of the characters. So all of the activities are similar, but the students have the freedom of choice, the style of writing that they prefer. So this is an example of a choice board. Another lesson example. So students have been learning some vocabulary related to food. And in the lesson, they have to record the vocabulary in their notebooks. Now, I'm sure we are always encouraging our students to try to record vocabulary, but instead of telling them exactly how to do it, we can give them options once again. So for students who are perhaps more visual learners, they could draw a picture. So you can see the word that we are recording here is oven. So they could draw a picture. Write a definition, so you can see the example definition there. Write a sentence using the word, a little bit more challenging, or write a translation. Now, we don't always want to encourage the use of translation when learning languages, but in some situations and for some students, they might prefer this style of learning. So once again, you can see that you've given them a task to do, but you've given them choice in the way that they complete it. And a final example for giving choice. So the teacher writes a list of tasks to complete. For example, you're teaching a lesson, you have 3 tasks for the student. It's not important which one they do first. Students can choose the order they complete them in. So they have the freedom to complete the tasks in whichever order they like. And you could use a planner, like the example here, to teach them organizational skills. So they have to write out what they need to do. They decide which one they'll do in which order. They maybe give themselves a time limit. And this teaches them organizational skills and helps with encouraging them to be a bit more independent and take control of their learning. Now, a few things to think about when implementing choice in the classroom. The teacher decides the options, the students choose one. We don't want to give them so much choice where we say, okay, you can do whatever you like. Of course, the teacher has to have some element of control. Only use it when you have flexibility in the lesson. So when you have, for example, a creative writing task or a vocabulary exercise or some kind of outcome where the type of outcome can be flexible. Ensure all options require the same level of effort because, of course, if there is one clear option that could be completed more easily, the students will always choose the easier option, or most of the time. So think about the options you provide them, make sure they do require the same level of effort and attention. And encourage students to pick the best option for them. Encourage them to think independently about how they like to learn, the type of activities they enjoy doing, not just picking the same option as their friends. This can be something that we have to really work at because it is tempting for students to just copy their friends a lot of the time. But getting them to think about what they're good at, what their skills are, and which option is best for them. Okay, I'm now going to talk about setting goals. So sometimes teachers may have to set the goals, especially if you're following a strict curriculum, but In some situations, you might let the students set their own goals. So you can give it to them in a structured way. If you look at the example here, the student has to write what their goal is. For example, I would like to be able to remember 10 new words to do with food. That's their goal. You can then give them a little bit more so they can say when they'll achieve the goal, how they'll achieve the goal, why they want to achieve that goal. This is really getting them involved in the learning process, because a lot of students, they go to school, they do what the teacher says, but they don't really think about why or what they're even learning. So this really gets them involved in thinking about what they want to do and how they're going to do it. So for students who are perhaps a bit older, I think this example here would be good for primary level students. But if we're moving up to secondary and maybe even high school students, you can start to introduce this idea of SMART goals. So making their goals specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. So you can then give them a little bit less structure. If you look at these gapped sentences, I want to blah, 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 by the time, so I will blah, blah, blah to meet my goal. So this is definitely more applicable for secondary level students because they will have developed that ability to write goals a little bit better. But you can see here two different ways of structuring goal making, getting the students involved. Some considerations when setting goals. Provide students with a model. Now, even just providing this is not always enough. You might want to, the first time you do this, show the students the example template and complete it together. Okay, if they don't see a model, it can be quite difficult for them to do it themselves. So providing them with a good model. Younger students could choose from a list of goals provided by the teacher, especially if you're doing this with secondary students for the first time. You could have a list of goals on the board and maybe they choose 1 or 2 goals to put on their worksheet. Teach them how to measure their success. So it's fine to write a goal, but they don't know if they've achieved it or how to know if they've achieved it. We want to avoid writing a goal and forgetting about it. So how will you know you achieved your goal? And again, a model is really important. Regularly check in with goal progress. So you might want to write the goals, stick them in their book, stick them on the wall, put them somewhere, and then regularly check in. And you can always adjust if needed, because that teaches our students that sometimes parameters might change. It's okay to change goals, but it's important to keep checking in because, of course, that's the point of goal setting. And as the teacher, you will need to check the goals to make sure they are realistic. You know your students, you know what is realistic for them to achieve. Make sure that what they write is realistic. And again, modeling is so important. Okay, we're now going to talk about roles in the classroom. Now, a lot of this is probably more applicable to a physical classroom than an online classroom, but let's have a look and see some examples. So giving roles, that is actually giving specific responsibilities to specific learners that they are responsible for carrying out in the class. So this is a nice visual example of what you could use in a primary classroom. So you can see that some of these roles are really quite specific. We have electrician, which basically is just the lights, turning off and on the lights. We've got door holder, table wiper, meteorologist, writing the weather on the board. So many examples. As a teacher, why not take some of those responsibilities from you and give them to the students? It might sound small, but the effect is big. So you have worksheets. Instead of handing out the worksheets yourself, have your worksheet helper hand them out for you. Okay, it's giving those small responsibilities to our students early on in their education that really teaches them about responsibility and independence. Okay, so this is how you could display this in a primary classroom. Nice visuals, sticking them on the board, writing the names of the student next to each role. And then perhaps for a secondary classroom or slightly older students, maybe you could introduce the idea of tables. So if you have students seated in groups, you could have table leader, materials manager, cleanup crew. If you've not got students sitting in tables, that's okay, but you could perhaps group them together and give them roles for their specific group. So some considerations when implementing roles. Get students involved in choosing the roles. So at the beginning of the semester, sit down and think, okay, what needs to be done in the classroom? What happens every day that I do as the teacher? Get them to write a list. You can even get them involved in making the role cards to stick on the board. You can involve them in every step of the process. When it comes to choosing the students for the roles, you might want to do that yourself. It really depends how enthusiastic your class is. They might volunteer. Give everyone a chance to have a role. It's a good idea to perhaps keep a record of maybe the week and the specific students you've had that week, just to avoid always picking the same people, making sure that everyone has a chance to do all of the roles. Do not always choose the reliable students, especially if every week you have the same student saying, I'll do it. Try to involve everybody, because otherwise, well, it excludes people. It teaches maybe some of the other students that they might not be good enough. It sends the wrong message. So make sure you keep a list of who does which job each week and rotate through your students. And always praise helpfulness, of course. So especially at the beginning, when you first introduce the idea of roles, praising helpfulness, praising effort. Exactly. And yes, Lena's just made a really good comment that the most reliable students can help, but it might also mean that the rest of the group gets ignored. Exactly, yeah, we want to avoid that. I can see someone's got this idea of a wheel of names. That's an excellent idea. Yeah, so to choose the role, you can spin the wheel. That's a great idea. Good to see that people are already implementing roles. So next I'm going to talk about group work, another great opportunity to allow students to become more independent by working together. The first one, 1, 2, 3, then me. This technique is used to try and reduce the amount of times students come to you with questions. So first you set the task and give students 1 minute to go over the directions silently. So you can write the instructions on the board, give them a minute to think and digest the instructions. Students can then spend 2 minutes discussing the task with each other. So they can clarify, oh, so we do this, how do we do this? What does that mean? They can talk to each other. In this time, they often get their questions about the task answered by each other. After that, they can spend 3 minutes planning their approach to the task, so how they're going to complete the task. If they need to at this point, they can ask for help. So you can see by following these stages, instead of the teacher setting the task, and then the students, oh, miss, question, I don't understand, and lots of questions coming to you, They think by themselves, they discuss with their classmates, and then again, they plan by themselves. After this, of course, they can still ask you questions, but by this point in the process, probably their questions have already been answered by the self-reflection and asking their classmates. So this can be especially useful for a group who needs to learn not to always immediately go to the teacher for help. A similar strategy, think, pair, share. So this is used when you want the students to perhaps raise their hand and give some ideas. So you ask the question and give students time to think about it alone. The question can be anything, depends on what the lesson is, but you ask the question and then students think silently. If you've got primary students, you can get them to put on their thinking hats. And then ask the students to talk about their ideas with a partner. Finally, you ask students to share their ideas with the whole class. So this is a nice way of getting everybody involved. The reason is that if they've had a chance to think, talk to a partner before sharing their ideas in front of everybody, it means they'll be more confident. They've already said their idea to one person, they'll be more confident sharing it with the rest of the group. So this is a nice way to get even the quieter, more shy, less confident students involved. If you want to, you can add an extra stage between 2 and 3 where they share in a small group. So they think alone, they talk to a partner, they talk in a group, and then they talk as a class. It gets more interaction that way. Okay, another idea for group work is listening triangles. So the teacher sets a question or a topic to discuss or a task. Students are in groups of 3, divided into a speaker, a questioner, and a listener. The speaker expresses their opinion on the topic. The questioner listens and then asks for clarification or asks for further detail. So they are responding directly to the speaker's ideas. The questioner listens, the note taker or the listener observes the process and provides feedback to the speaker and the questioner. So you have a third student who's been listening, and then they can give their feedback and ideas. The teacher changes the topic and the students switch roles and repeat. So this can encourage more autonomy, more independent learning, because the students are the ones in charge of the situation. So you've got the speaker is speaking, the questioner, instead of the teacher asking questions, the questioner asks questions. And then you've got the note taker who also gives their opinion. So it teaches them about, well, listening skills, but also managing an interaction without the teacher directing them. Now, I talked about roles in the classroom. We can also use roles in group work. So students discuss a task and decide roles, or the teacher can give students roles. So especially if you're doing project work, the students might discuss what they need to do and the different roles that are needed. For example, they might need someone to do note-taking, someone to be in charge of timekeeping, someone to be in charge of doing the drawings. So everyone in the group has a role. Or, of course, the teacher can give the roles if they feel that it's necessary. Students assign roles to each team member and encourage them to consider each other's strengths when assigning roles. So, for example, if you have given the project to design a poster and you've got a group of students, say, okay, well, who's going to be the drawer? Who's good at drawing? And who can be the leader? Who's going to motivate the team? Who's very good at being organized? Who will keep everyone on track? Okay, so in that way, everyone is taking responsibility and thinking about each other's strengths. I think that we've got a comment here about roles being quite difficult to implement if the class is quite short. Yes, absolutely. I think that implementing roles, you do need a bit more time, and you do need to train the students, of course, to get used to that idea. Now, in order for group work to work well, students must be taught what good group work is. Again, it doesn't come naturally. They don't naturally know how to work well in a group. This is why we do it in school, so the teacher can teach them what that means. Model group work tasks before expecting students to carry them out alone, okay? So if you've given students the task to create a poster, make sure you model it. Talk about what roles there will be in the group, what steps they need to take in order to make the poster. And gradually reduce teacher support. So throughout the year or throughout the semester, as you see students getting more used to this idea of group work and working better together, you can gradually reduce the amount of support you give. So the first lesson where they're working in a group, probably the teacher needs to monitor very closely and probably get more involved, making sure that everyone is on task. As the semester goes on, you can gradually reduce that level of support. Always praise good displays of group work. So if you see a group who's working really well together, praise them, show them as a good example for the rest of the class. Why are they working so well as a group? What are they doing that's meaning they're working well? And consider student personalities when forming groups. You, of course, know your students, you know their personalities, you know which personalities work well together and which might clash. So think about the task you're setting and how the students will work in the groups. Exactly, yes. So we've got a message from Candida saying we need to check that we integrate students with different personalities and characteristics, because exactly in real life, when they get a job, when they leave school, they'll work with people with all kinds of different personalities. I'd now like to talk about self-reflection. So, before I go on to that, self-reflection. Most of the time in the traditional classroom, it's necessary for the teacher to give feedback. And of course, that's important. You are the teacher, you of course need to give feedback. But sometimes it's great to encourage our students to give feedback to themselves. This is one of the most important ways that we can help them to become autonomous and independent, to self-reflect. So starting with younger learners, primary school learners, or even early years, we can use smiley faces. It can be as simple as coloring in the smiley face to show how well they did a task or how well they understood. Okay, so the smiley face, I understand. Sad face, I don't understand. Neutral face, I understand a little. We can even go a step further and get the student to write what they can do and how they feel about it. So this is really for younger learners, and that's the first stage in teaching self-reflection. Still primary level, maybe a step further, we can use traffic lights. So if they feel confident about the task, green, I can do this, I can do this by myself. Yellow or orange, I'm learning, I'm getting there, I'm still getting used to it. Red, I need help, I can't do it. Okay, you can use this during a task where you get students to hold up the color of the traffic light for how they feel. Just remember that sometimes students might show the green light because everyone else is, so it doesn't always work perfectly. But if you can see that a student, really does understand, they'll show you the green light, and that's great. Now moving a little bit further up to older primary students or lower secondary students, we can have tick boxes. Now, if they've set goals at the beginning of the class, this is where you can use your goals and they tick whether they have achieved it or not. So you can see an example here of some goals that you might have at the end of the lesson, and you get students to tick or cross. You could even have a blank box at the bottom. I can blah, blah, blah. They can write something else that they achieved that day. So moving up a little bit from traffic lights, getting a bit more specific, we have the tick boxes. And now for older students, so probably more, well, again, older primary or secondary students, sentence completion. So here are just a few examples that you could use. You don't have to use all of them. You can change them if you want to, but try to have a mix of positive and areas for improvement. So positive things. My favorite thing today was, I'm proud of myself for, I liked it when the teacher. So some positive things. And then also things to improve. I need help with, I need to practice. So you've got a nice balance of achievements and things to work on. So you can see how we progress from the very basic smiley faces through the traffic lights, the tick boxes, and finally sentences. This is a structured way to teach them how to self-reflect. The next thing I'd like to talk about is peer assessment. Now, this can be quite a difficult thing to teach, but it's another step in the direction of teaching students to become autonomous. So peer assessment is when their classmates give feedback to their classmates. You can do this in a number of ways. We've got some smiley faces again here. I'm not sure if you can read that very well, but basically you've got your criteria, and then students rate how well their partner achieved the criteria with some smiley faces. Very basic. You could also use star ratings. So again, for primary students, you might want to use smiley faces and stars. For older students who have progressed a little bit more in terms of reflection, you could have a peer evaluation form. So 3 things you did well, 3 things to improve. It can be quite difficult because again, in the student's mind, you're the teacher and you're supposed to be doing this, okay? So it's important that you talk to them about why this is useful. Why is it good to be able to evaluate each other? So a few more notes on self-reflection. Sometimes the teacher must set the parameters. You can't always let the students write what the parameters were for the reflection. Teach students how to reflect. Again, model examples of what they can think about, what they can write. Select the appropriate method based on age. Probably avoid smiley faces with teenagers, and don't expect young primary students to be able to do the sentences, not at the beginning at least. Model peer reflection by providing your own feedback. So you could even start the semester by using that feedback form to give your feedback. And as the semester goes on, start encouraging students to use it themselves so that they've already seen the type of comments that you make and they know the types of things to look for when reflecting. Now, the final thing I'd like to talk about is project-based learning. So, project-based learning gives the teacher an opportunity to combine a range of learner-centered strategies. So goal setting, choice, group work, and roles and self and peer reflection. So the reason project-based learning is so useful in this topic of learner-centered classrooms is that it incorporates everything we've talked about so far. All of these different methods to become autonomous are combined together in project-based learning. Now, before I give some general examples of projects, I would love to hear from everyone here, because you've been so participative. What projects have worked well in your classes? I'd love to hear some ideas. So if you write in the comments, projects that you've used in class that have worked well. Maybe think about the most recent project that you did, or even a project that didn't work well. But any kind of project that you've done in a class. Ruth says, my students love to participate in teams. That's amazing, Ruth. If they already love working in a team, you're halfway there. Rafaela, recipes. Oh, that sounds interesting. Writing recipes, I love that. Yes, ones that deal with students' interests, exactly. It's really important to find out what students are interested in. Thanksgiving, students were happy they dressed up. Oh, amazing. Tourist flyers, songs, writing a dialogue, kites, booklets with vocabulary. These all sound amazing. Okay, great. So lots of examples of projects in the chat for you there. I'm now going to give you a whole load more. So plan and deliver a presentation, produce a poster, write a journal, do a dramatic performance, film and edit a video, a little bit more technically challenging, that one. Write and perform a poem, song, or rap. Make an infographic, write a story, comic, diary entry, scene for a play, deliver a news broadcast, make a scrapbook, create a quiz for another team. These are just a few project ideas where you could incorporate all of the things we've talked about today. But if you look in the comments, I can see hundreds more. Amazing. And I love getting other ideas for projects, because sometimes your mind always goes to the same projects every time. It's great to mix it up and give your students choice to do other types of projects. Now, things to keep in mind when implementing projects in the classroom. Decide how much freedom you can allow. We've talked about choice and flexibility and letting students choose. Decide how much you can really allow in that project, because you might have certain guidelines that you yourself need to meet. Have clear outcomes. So if the project is to make a poster, the students need more than that. What needs to be on the poster? How much information? What should it look like? So very clear outcomes. Decide how you will measure the learning. So with projects, it can be quite difficult to measure the learning. So how are you going to measure that learning? Get students involved with peer assessment. So project-based learning is an excellent opportunity to have peer and self-reflection. Oh, and that's the last point that I had to mention on projects. So before we finish, got some final thoughts and just your own self-reflection. So if you want to implement a student-centered approach in your classroom, consider the following points. Start slow. So maybe you saw an idea today that you would like to implement, but think about the fact that students need a model. It might be an unfamiliar approach to them. They might not be used to you giving them so much responsibility. So just make sure you start slow and don't jump in at the deep end. And then gradually reduce teacher support. The first time they write their goals, they'll need a lot of support from you. But as you go through the semester and they become familiar with the process, then you can take a step back. Find out your learners' interests. Lots of people have been writing in the comments how important it is to know what your learners are interested in. If you know your learners' interests, it will help you when planning your lessons, especially projects. Explore project-based learning. It incorporates all of those strategies we've talked about today. And try to plan time for group work, because if students are working together, asking each other the questions, sharing ideas together, there's more opportunity to learn independence. And try to incorporate self and peer reflection. Just remember to give them support with that at the beginning. And always, always provide a model. So we're now going to do some self-reflection, of course. So write in the comments, what ideas from this session would you like to try in your classroom? It could be an idea that I gave, or it could be an idea that you saw in the comments, because there were so many ideas. So maybe one idea from this session that you want to try in your classroom. Okay, good, Vicente. I'm glad you liked the recommendations. Lots of people still writing about projects that they do. You've got so many ideas. Okay, we've got setting goals, self-reflection, writing instructions, the traffic lights. Good, I'm glad you like the traffic lights. Okay, 2 more questions. What challenges will you face when implementing these ideas, and how will you overcome these challenges? So slightly more difficult question, but if, for example, you want to use the traffic light, what challenge do you think you'll face with that? How will you overcome that? Lots of people writing self-reflection. I'm glad. Good. Yeah, teamwork. Okay, so yes, putting in lots of work at the beginning. Yes, because we have to teach them how to become independent. It does require lots of work from you at the beginning, lots of modeling, support, knowing how much support to give. But just remember, little steps. Don't expect them to suddenly be completely autonomous the first time you try a self-reflection. It doesn't work like that. Yeah, it is. It's something new, exactly. New ideas, you have to go slowly. Great. Okay. Well, thank you so much, everyone. There was so much participation in the comments. That was amazing. I really hope that you enjoyed the session. I think we've just gone a little bit over the 50 minutes, so I don't think I have time to answer any questions. Do I? I'm just seeing if there were any questions in the comments. If you do have a question. Oh, yes, I do have time. Okay, so we've got a few minutes now if you would like to ask any questions. So I'll just look through the comments now. Do you have any questions about how to implement any of these ideas? Anything about incorporating the activities into class? Let's just have a look. Oh, you're very welcome, everybody. Oh, someone's asked a question about a 5-year-old. Let me just, how would you work with a 5-year-old? Okay, so I think when students are below the age of 7, sort of the more early years, obviously there's only very limited amount of independence we can expect from a 5-year-old. But I would say definitely the smiley faces, even the traffic lights, if a 5-year-old understands the concept of traffic lights. But yes, the smiley faces with 5-year-olds can work. It just has to be very simple. For example, you watch a video. How do you feel about the video? You know, thumbs up, thumbs down, smiley face, sad face. Very simple questions. Was this easy or difficult? Show me with the smiley face. Okay, but remember that even with 5-year-olds, we have goals for the class, and you can ask the student how they feel. Just showing a smiley face is easy enough. Someone asked, how often would you do self-reflection? Well, again, you have to start slow, but once your students are used to the idea, you can use it at the end of every day, at the end of the school day. As an English language teacher who only sees students maybe once a week, I would do a self-reflection at the end of every English class. Again, deciding what level of reflection you want them to do, but even if it's just, what did you learn today? Tell me 3 words that you learned today. That's self-reflection right there. So start slow, but you can build it up so that you're reflecting every day if you want to. I'm just having a look. We've got lots of questions coming through. Oh, wow. Someone's saying you have 40 students in the group. 40 students, that's a lot. But yes, you can definitely do projects with a group of 40 students. You just have to really teach them about group work, roles, responsibility. Okay, I'm just seeing if there's any more questions. A couple of people commenting about needing more time. Yeah, it is very time consuming implementing these ideas. Okay, how do you get students to write independently? Well, it depends on the age and level of the students, but a way that you can encourage independent writing is starting with like a template. So let's assume that you want your students to write a story, a short story. For a lot of students, a blank page is really difficult and it can make them feel panicked. So give them a template. That's my recommendation to build confidence in independent writing. Templates, a sentence starter, start slow. So at first they just have to complete the sentences. They fill in the template until they gradually have a template that has fewer sentence starters. So building it up slowly would be my advice there. Okay. I'm just seeing any more questions. I think, oh, Nadia says you like the idea of creating a quiz for another team. Oh, great. I'm glad you like that idea. Excellent. Well, I don't see any more questions. I hope that you enjoyed the presentation, everybody. It was really nice to be with you today. And yeah, thank you so much. I hope you enjoy the rest of the week.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Grace, for this talk that really reminds us what's really important in our profession, which is our students. It's a great pleasure to have you here with us at the Jornada Nacional. Thank you again.
Thank you so much. Goodbye.
All right, quick announcements before we leave. Well, if you haven't had the chance or the time to watch all of the sessions this week, you can go back with the same link and watch them at your own pace. The daily quizzes will be available for you 2 weeks, so you can make the most of the Jornada Nacional and get your certificate of attendance. So I hope you are ready because it's time for a break. Go, stretch, grab yourself a coffee, and come back for our next session at 4:10 with the same link. See you back. Welcome back. I am very happy to send special greetings to all of the teachers from the Alianza del Pacífico. Teachers from Mexico, Peru, Colombia, and Chile. Welcome, teachers. And I'm also very pleased to introduce our next speaker, Mr. Joe Dale, an independent consultant from the UK who works with a range of global organizations such as the British Council. This session is pre-recorded and is a taste of what you will find in BBELT conference. We encourage you to keep commenting in the chat and let us know what you think of all of the tools that Joe Dale has shared with us. Welcome, Joe Dale.
Session around sharing good language teaching practice in the new normal. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. I'm very grateful to the organisers at BBELT to give me this opportunity. So my name's Joe Dale. I'm a former languages teacher. I taught French for 13 years, 3 years at secondary school level, and then 10 years at middle school level, 9 to 13-year-olds on the Isle of Wight, which is where I live, and I've lived here for over 20 years. So I've got upper primary and secondary school experience. For the last 11, 12 years or so, I've been an independent languages consultant, and I normally travel around the world running training on the use of technology and how it can enhance language learning, as well as across the curriculum. But of course, as a result of the pandemic, I've had to do nearly all my work via webinars, although I am starting to do a few things face-to-face as well, which is fantastic. I hope everyone is safe and well where you are, and I really hope that you find this session useful. I'm going to be talking for about 45 minutes or so, and I'll be sharing the whole presentation with you. My Twitter handle is on the screen, as you can see, at Joe Dale. I've got over 33,000 followers now. If you'd like to follow me, if you're not already, and I'd like to do that, then you'd be more than welcome. I'm more than happy to retweet any questions you might have as well, or you can send me a direct message if you'd like to about anything which I'll be talking about today. My email address is joedale@talk21.com. So likewise, you can send me an email if you would like. So the idea of this presentation is to be sharing good practice around the teaching and learning that has been happening in UK schools amongst language teachers teaching French, German, Spanish, etc. But lots of the ideas will be replicable in the ELT classroom as well. So this will give you a flavor of the sorts of things I'll be talking about in the next 45 minutes. You can see that there are lots of ideas there. There may be some tools that you've heard of already, which is fantastic. But I'm sure I'll be teaching you some new ideas as well, in addition to the ones which you are seeing right now. So let's get into it, because we don't have lots and lots of time. So first of all, I wanted to talk about the Tilt webinar series, which I put together along with my friend Helen Myers, who's the chair of the London branch of the Association for Language Learning in the UK. So back in March 2020, we both sort of came together and made the decision that would be a good idea to put a series of webinars together around technology and language teaching. And there, the idea of the Tilt webinars was born. And since the start of the pandemic, we've organized over 140 different webinars, all of which are available for free via my YouTube channel, which is Joe Dale 100, 100 as in the figures. And if you also do a search for ALL London webinars, then you'll go to the ALL London website. And if you go to the webinar section, there you'll see all the archives of all the recordings that have happened so far, plus the presentations, if the presenter has been kind enough to share that as well. And in most cases, the chat as well that was happening in Zoom. We haven't stopped doing the webinars. There's still ones happening in the future. There's one happening this month, for example. And you'd be more than welcome to come along. They normally run at 8 o'clock in the evening, UK time. So do come along if you fancy doing that. You can see on the screen, I've just got a couple of examples here. These are ones particularly focusing on Microsoft tools. So we have different teachers here talking about different types of Microsoft tools that they've used, for example, using Class Notebook or setting up Microsoft Teams or creating Microsoft Forms for formative assessment and so on and so forth. So there really is something for everybody. Here we've got ideas around Google tools. We've got lots and lots of third-party tools, and we have teachers from literally all over the world who've been doing these Tilt webinars. So do check them out, because it's hours and hours of free professional development for you. Okay. Also, as a result of the pandemic, there have been some amazing teachers that decided to set up different Facebook groups. This one was set up by Jen O'Reilly Turner back at the beginning of the pandemic. As you can see, it's called Teaching MFL with Teams, MFL standing for Modern Foreign Languages. and it has over 5,000 members now. So if you are working in a school with Office 365, I'd really encourage you not only to check out the different postings that are there, but also to ask questions yourself. And you will find a very rich resource of different information around using Office 365 in the classroom to teach languages. So something really, really useful for everyone. The equivalent for Google Classroom is this one, Google Classroom for MFL Teachers, a Facebook group, which was set up by Samantha Broom. Again, at the beginning of the pandemic, there are 3,000 members of this community. And again, a real rich resource for different ideas around using Google tools. And, you know, there are no silly questions. You can ask any question you want, and you'll get some lovely people helping you. And in lots of ways, I think this is one of the silver linings of the pandemic, the way in which we've all come together and we've been helping different people out. And that's, in a way, what this presentation is all about, showcasing good work. The first tool we're going to look at is Flipgrid. If you haven't heard of Flipgrid before, it's a really useful free tool which was acquired by Microsoft a few years ago, and it's very useful for asynchronous speaking practice. So particularly if you've had lots of lockdowns or you're finding it difficult to practice speaking, is a way you can encourage the students to take part on any device that they have. Flipgrid works on all devices, and when they get access to a good enough internet connection, it will be absolutely fine from that point of view. So the principal idea around Flipgrid is that you have different grids which are referred to as topics. You have groups which are like classes. So you create your different grids, you ask a question in the target language, which appears as your first video, and then you encourage the students who are part of your group to respond to your question in a topic and to answer in the target language. You can also create what are called Flipgrid shorts, which are sort of standalone videos which are not part of any particular group or topic. So top left, we have Jane Bassnett, who's the head of languages at Downhouse School in the south of England in the UK. And she's also in charge of evening school as well. She works at Microsoft Showcase School. And you can see in her video example there on the left-hand side, you've got Jane appearing in the video. You've also got a graphic as well. And you've got the fact that she's annotating over the top. So it's a multimodal approach. And by doing that, she's able to explain a grammar point. She can then share that link with her students, and they can then watch that video as many times as they need to, as a way of giving them an idea of the grammar that they're going to be covering in the lesson. As a result of that, that will then free up more time for them to then do interactive activities. So it's a type of flip learning model, if you like. Jane, also on the right-hand side there, she's taken a screenshot of a PowerPoint looking at some grammar, again, in this case, how to form the perfect tense using être in French. She's got the screenshot, she's annotating, and she's recording her voice at the same time. And then again, she's making that available to different students in her class. Bottom left, you've got a video from Sam Carey, that's Kary, who is an educator from the States, and he has an amazing YouTube channel called The New EdTech Classroom, which I would really encourage you to check out. This particular video that he made is called How to Teach Remotely with Flipgrid, but he's made many, many other videos which are very useful if you're looking for step-by-step guides. And then bottom right, we've got from Flipgrid, just through some of the ways which you can use Flipgrid in the classroom, for example, for using a whiteboard or a blackboard for stop-motion animation, for screen recording, and so on and so forth. So I think that's a really, really sort of nice little start there. On the right-hand side here, this is Sam Carey again. And here he's done a video clip around assigning work with topics and groups. And on the left-hand side, you've got a video from Mike Tolson, who is prolific on the use of technology, Microsoft technologies. He works in the education department for Microsoft. And in this particular video, he talks about how you can give feedback via text comments in addition to video responses. You can also moderate videos as well. You'll be pleased to hear. And you can have what are called mic-only videos, which means you don't appear at all on the video. You just appear with a white background with a blue circle and a white pulsating microphone inside it. So there are lots of ways in which you can make it as safe as possible to use this type of tool in the classroom. Top left here, I've got a little screenshot from a tweet that was taken back in April of 2020 from a school in the Middle East, whereby they were talking about how Flipgrid can encourage communicative confidence. I think that lots of tools which are to do with speaking, digital tools which are to do with speaking, are very useful for promoting confidence amongst students, because of the fact that you have this idea of being able to re-record as many times as you need to, which encourages risk-taking. It can build confidence, as I've said. And it's just a great way of being able to have evidence of speaking work, so it doesn't just sort of go off in the ether. You can use it as a way of promoting speaking work using Flipgrid as well as other tools which I'll be talking about later on today. That's really you've all can now do screen recording in Flipgrid, and I'll talk about more of that in a moment. And also the fact that you have Chrome extension and a Microsoft Edge extension with Flipgrid, which means you can record your video straight within the browser if you want to. So on the next slide, this is an example of how you can use the Google Earth function, I Feel Lucky, which allows you to basically go anywhere that you want in the world. And you can also capture that as an animated GIF, which is what I've done in this example. But what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to actually show you live how this works. So the idea is that you can be recording your screen using Flipgrid while you are traveling anywhere around the world and asking the students to tell you where exactly that you're going. So here, as you can see, we have the Google Earth here. I'm now going to click here, which is the I'm Feeling Lucky option. And that means I'm literally going to go anywhere in the world. Let's see what happens right now. So it so happens I'm going to Denmark, to an island in Denmark. So I could be saying to the students, okay, what can you see? You can see an island. You can see the sea here. You can see some green fields and so on and so forth. And then what you can do is you can drag the little man here, and we can see whether we can go into Google Street View. So it so happens we're going into Google Street View. Sometimes if the place is very remote, it says that the Street View is not available. So now, again, I can ask the students what can they see. So they can see some fields, they can see some trees, we can move around, they can see some bushes, and so on and so forth. So this is in Denmark. We're now going to go somewhere else. So I'm going to click the I'm Feeling Lucky again. And this time we're going to go to Greece, to another island, it so happens. Okay, so we're going to another island. And again, you could ask them to describe it. Let's see if there's any Street View data here. Let's see. Yes, we're going in again. That's amazing. So now we're going here. So 2 rural places so far. Perfect. Right. So we're now we're on a ferry, I think. We're on a ferry. So you could be saying, okay, where's that person looking? What are these people doing here? Where have they been? How do they feel? What's the weather like? And so on and so forth. We'll just go to one other place. And now we're going to England. Okay, fantastic. So in England, we're going to a Royal Liverpool Golf Club. So again, you could describe what you can see. So I can see some houses. I can see a field. I can see a pitch here. And then from there, we can then go straight into Google Street View. Interesting. It says there's no Street View available for this one. So let's go somewhere else. Let's see if that's not at all. So that's perfect. That just shows you how you can't guarantee there will be Street View data available. So that's how that works. A type of web quest, but you're recording your screen in Flipgrid, using functionality and the topic, and then asking the students maybe to replicate themselves, doing the same thing. However you want to. This little animated GIF flavor. How that works. Okay, when you're setting up your groups in Flipgrid, they have to be private. I know it says public there. That's because this is an older screenshot. But when you're creating these, you need to make sure, well, all the groups by default are private. You then have to either add the students via an email address, which has to be a student Google or Microsoft email address from the domain in the school, or you can get them to use a username. You can set these up for them if you want to. You can also upload a CSV file with all the information there to add your students. So it doesn't take that much time to set up the different groups. And if you click on the link there, it will give you some instructions on how to do that. Here are a couple of articles around the integration of Microsoft Teams with Google Classroom and Flipgrid. You'll notice that when you go into Flipgrid, there's always, when you share anything, there's always the Google Classroom or Microsoft Teams integration. You can also use the roster or the classes in Google Classroom when you're signing up, and it just makes it very, very simple to then add all your students all in one go, or you can add them via a CSV file if you would like. So the links, I think there you'll find useful. Officially, you should have a consent form for Flipgrid, so you should get parental consent if you're going to be using Flipgrid with students under the age of 18. And here's the official consent form that you can then download from the website, from this presentation as well. And then also, when I'm asked about how Flipgrid deals with data, I've provided this web page as well. So you can see exactly how Flipgrid have put together a policy around how they deal with educator and student personal data, which is always very important to have a look at. This is the mic only option I was talking about. Again, I've made this using a GIF. What I've done is I've done this on my iPad. I've recorded my screen using the default screen recording option in iOS. I've then taken that video, put it into an app called Image Play, which is IMG PLAY, which is a free iOS and Android app, which allows me to export that video as an animated GIF and then put it into my presentation. So you can see how this works. You click on the three dots, you click the mic only option, you can then record without appearing on the screen and have your video then appear within the topic of your choice. And that's how that works. Okay, let's carry on. This is a tutorial that I did for Quartisol, which is a Queensland-based TESOL organization. I've done a couple of webinars for them last year, and this one was looking at formative assessment ideas, and about 50% of it, the second half of it, is particularly looking at Flipgrid. So if you want a sort of step-by-step guide on how to use Flipgrid in the languages classroom, then do check that one out for your own pleasure.
It's 4:30.
Okay. The next one we're going to have a look at is called Quicker Conversations. And I'm going to do this one live. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the quicker.education website. This is a little bit like Flipgrid, but it particularly looks at how you can use this for speaking. And there's two ways of using Quicker. You can either use it for individual feedback. So you can, for example, print off a PDF of QR codes. You can then assign a piece of audio to a particular QR code, and then you can then cut up the copy that you've printed off, stick it in a student's exercise book or on a wall display in order to promote student voice, or obviously you can use it as a teacher to give feedback to students. So you simply go through, you click on the print QR code stickers, and it's all very self-explanatory. But what I'm going to show you today is the option of creating a quicker conversation. So I'm going to click on this right now. I could put in a title and a tag here to help me organize my content, but I'm just going to go for it. I'm going to click record right now and show you how it works. Okay, so I'm recording my voice right now. This is Quicker Conversations. It's completely free to use. It was designed by a science teacher in the UK, in the southwest of England. And you can record for as long as you want to, and the audio is kept for up to 3 months. If you want to keep it for longer than that, then you have to pay about £2 per month, which is very accessible. I mean, but you can also right-click the audio player and download the audio directly, which means you permanently got it. So I've now made my recording, and I'm now going to click stop. Okay, so I've made my recording. I can delete my audio if I want to. I can play it back. I can re-record it. I can also upload some audio if I wanted to from something that I edited first of all, for example, in Audacity. If I want to keep my audio permanently, I can right-click the play and I can save audio and download the audio to my PC, for example. Okay, now I can now take a photo if I wanted to. Have a visual prompt. I can text as instructions. I can add a web link, and I can also get rid of the multimedia options which I don't want to appear on the screen. So you can see that all I'm going to have when I share this link with my students is the microphone appearing, which is perfect. So as a result of that, that would just make life easier. Now I'm going to also turn on moderation, and I'm now going to click on Start Your Quick Conversation. So I'll then show you how this works. Okay, now what I'm going to do now is, well, normally if I was in, say, a session with lots of other people, I could copy the link like this, right-click copy, and I could paste it in the chat. But I'm not going to do that right now. What I'm going to do instead is I'm going to launch this QR code extension I have, and I'm going to scan this with my iPad, and that will allow me to access the link straight on my iPad, and it means I can now make a recording. And you'll see on my screen, hopefully, that, oh, maybe not. Let me just turn that around again. Let's see if you can see it. You can maybe see that. No, you can't see that very well just because of how it's sorted out. Anyway, you have to just believe me that there's a blue circle with a white microphone on it on the screen. And I'm now going to press that and make a little recording like this. So I'm going to press record and then allow my microphone access. And then here we go. We're recording. Okay, so the idea is once the teacher has asked the question in the target language, you can then, as a class, all record your different answers and they'll all appear in the one thread. Or you could use this for practicing a dialogue, whereby a student had created the first line of the dialogue, shared it with another student. They would then record the second line. The first student would record the third line, then the fourth line, then the fifth line, and so on and so forth. So it would be back and forth recording a dialogue by using quicker conversations. A little bit like Flipgrid, but simpler and easy to set up in lots of ways. So having finished recording, I'm going to press stop. And there it is. And you'll see now on the screen in a moment that my audio recording will now appear, because on my screen it says response awaiting approval. That's perfect. So you can see now how moderation works. I could now press play if I wanted to and listen back to this. I can click approve or delete. If there was any sort of inappropriate content there, I could click delete. I don't have to click approve because I'm the only person who's going to be able to listen to this as the teacher. So everyone could reply to my question, and I could choose whether I approve it or not. If I don't approve it, I can still listen to it and download it. And that would mean that the students would not be able to listen to each other's if they didn't want, if you didn't want them to do that. But I'm happy with that, so I'm going to click approve. And there we are, and we've done it. So now I would ask other students to then also record, and they would also appear on my page here. Once you've finished the recording, you simply click the padlock option here, and you click lock conversation. That means nobody else can now add to that recording, and you're good to go. So that's a quick introduction to Quicker. And if I carry on to the next slide, there's actually a video tutorial here to go through exactly what I've just shown you, but I've just shown you that live, so that's fine. On this page, here are some examples of different language teachers showing how this particular tool can be used. So, for example, top left, we've got Karen Longman here, who is working in a school in Monaco, in the International School of Monaco, and she is working in a one-to-one iPad school. So it means that she's using Pages, which is the equivalent of Google Docs or Microsoft Word, and she's using Quicker Conversations or the individual Quicker QR code in order to create a listening comprehension, whereby she's getting the students to practice their listening, grammar, and thinking skills. You then have got Invacad MFL there, who is Sarah Bell from Invacad Academy up in Scotland near Glasgow. And she's using Quicker for live marking. So using her voice as an alternative to written feedback, that sort of multimodal approach, I think, is really exciting around the use of technology. And then also in Scotland, Turnbull Modern Languages, which is a school in Fife, they are using Quicker feedback for QR code treasure hunts for dictation and translation races, which is also really useful and interesting, I think. But clearly you'd have to be COVID secure while doing that. Bottom left, you've got Claire Wilson and then Miss Burke in the middle there at the bottom, who are looking at how you can use Quicker feedback for speaking homeworks, which I think is fantastic for practicing different languages asynchronously in the way that I've shown you already. And then you've got Vincent Everett there, who is using it for voice-to-voice dictation. As you can see, it says they listen and repeat back a bit longer each time until they can do the whole text or summarize it or answer a question. Simple, spontaneous responses. Not a presentation, just like in the classroom, which I just think is fabulous. And it just shows how versatile this tool is in lots of ways. I'm now going to give you a quick idea on how you can create your own praise postcard using Quicker as well as with Vocaroo. I'm actually going to focus on Vocaroo here because it's even simpler. I'm sure lots of you know about Vocaroo, but have you tried a digital praise postcard? So I'm going to click on the link here. Don't forget, I'm sharing the whole presentation with you. And this is an example of a template which I put together based on an example which I found on Twitter, which has been duly credited on the previous slide. So you can see here, you put the name of the student you want to send the praise postcard to, and then you need to record some audio. So to do that, I'm going to use Vocaroo. So I'm going to go to here, and I'm going to go to Vocaroo. This vocaroo.com, and I'm going to record my audio like this. Okay, so I'm recording Vocaroo. Vocaroo allows you to record for as long as you want to. The audio is stored for up to 1 year, and you can then download it at any time. You can delete the recording if you want. You can share the link via a QR code. You can download the QR code really simply and easily. So the idea of a praise postcard is you're praising a particular student's work, and you're going to then record your voice. So it sounds very, personal and and it's a great way of giving feedback. And then you're going to send the postcard to the student or to the parents of that student, so they can all be very proud of how their child has done in that particular piece of work. So I now press stop recording like this. I click save and share. I can copy the link this way, or in this example, what I'm going to do is I'm going to download the QR code. So I click here, save QR code, click save like that. I'll then go back to my praise postcard like this, and I can literally just drag and drop that onto the screen, which is fantastic. So having done that, I can now rearrange this. If I really wanted to, I could delete the square, the instructions behind, but I'm just keeping that as the template at the moment. And then how do I then share it? So what I can do is I can click on the file option, I can click download. I can download this as a PDF and upload it to Microsoft Teams, to OneDrive, to Google Classroom, etc. I can also download this as an image, as a PNG file. There's a Chrome extension which I particularly like at the moment, which is called Alice Keeler's Quick Share Screenshot, which you connect to your Google Drive. So all you have to do is click here like this, click Take Partial Screen. Like that, your cursor becomes a cross. You can then drag over your the thing that you want to grab, let go. It then uploads to Google Drive. It goes into a folder which is automatically created when you first install the Chrome extension, which is called Quick Share Screenshot. And all you have to do, the first time you do that, you just go to that folder in Drive, you right-click it, you click Get Link, and you make it available to anyone in your organization or anyone with a link, which means that when people click on the link that is pasted to the clipboard automatically, they'll be able to see your image. So if I were now to paste this onto the screen, you'll see what it looks like. If I click here, paste, there it is. It looks like that. So you could then paste that, for example, into a chat area in, say, Zoom or in StreamYard, as we're using right now, and it just goes from there. So as a result of having that link, you can then click on that and see the image. So a really easy way of sharing a praise postcard in that way. Okay, let's carry on. Right, in this next example, this is Vincent Everett, who I've just mentioned, who came up with the idea of creating a street view mystery. So he visited virtually the town of Vesoul in France. And what he did was he found some interesting things in that particular town that were happening, which he thought were noteworthy. And then he put together a pack of clues, which had written clues in there and also some spoken clues. So he asked people on Twitter, as part of the MFL Twitterati community, if they could record their voice as if they were playing the role of an old man, an old woman, a young girl, etc. And then he put that all together into this pack, which you can download for free from the link here. So I'm just going to give you a flavor of this right now. Just going to get to the starting point. There we are. So I'll just quickly go to here. Just give me a second to find the point of the video that I wanted, which is, here we are. It's just around here. So I'll just press play.
Cat food just left there behind the group.
Bit further. Sorry about this. I thought I had it keyed up to the right place. Just give me a second. Here we are. Here we are. I've got it now. Right. Okay. So here we are.
There he is. You can click here to bring up the sound, which I've got here. Either that or scan on your phone this QR code will bring up the audio. So if you click here, you'll hear me basically, or someone else, other contributors saying this. The questions underneath are very much there to help you understand. So what is his name? Je suis Henri. There you are. What is behind you? Regardez derrière vous, il y a un pot de fleurs énorme. Okay, so on the one on YouTube, I didn't spoil it for you. I didn't turn around and see the big pot of flowers. But when you do this in class, I know from the previous Street View Mysteries, there's a gasp out loud moment. Sometimes pupils even scream when you turn around and you suddenly see something like an enormous pot of flowers for no apparent reason, just sitting there. Okay, so there are some strange things going on in this town. So here's your first jab.
There we are. So that's hopefully giving you a flavour of how that works. So Vincent has put together these different clues. You can either read the clues in the target language or listen to them and then try to work out the answers to the different clues which are presented in that way. So another interesting way of using Quicker, I think. Okay, Edpuzzle is another tool which has proved really popular during the pandemic for listening practice. If you haven't seen Edpuzzle before, It's a free tool which allows you to make a class. Once you've made a class, you can then put in different YouTube clips into your class, and you can add different questions within those YouTube clips so that when the playhead gets to that point in the video, a question will then appear, and the students can't just scrub to the end. They have to answer all the questions. As a result of that, you get some data in the grade book that the teacher has. There are two types of questions that you can have. You can either have a multiple choice question, which is marked automatically, or a short answer question, which you then, as the teacher, have to go back in afterwards and mark manually. But on this particular page, we've got a Tilt webinar there called Harness the Power of Music. That's from Paco Fernandez, who is based in Cambridgeshire. And he did a webinar for us back in May 2020, whereby he looked at some different tools around promoting listening using music. So he looked at, for example, Edpuzzle, but in addition to that, other tools such as lyrics training, Spotify, and so on and so forth. And then on the left-hand side, Jane again, that's a screenshot of some data from her grade book showing how a student has got 63 out of 100, that they've watched 100% of the video, how many correct answers they got, and so on and so forth. So that's really, really interesting, I think, from the point of view of getting an idea of how to use Edpuzzle. And also Lauren Crawley there, top right, who's did a 5-minute demo of Edpuzzle for an event which Jane organized. So lots of ideas there. This is a tutorial which I put together for the Post-Primary Languages Ireland organization last year. And you can see it's all around how to set Edpuzzle up, a step-by-step guide on how to create your classes, how to set the different questions, and so on and so forth. And also, quite recently, I helped to organize an Edpuzzle webinar involving people from Edpuzzle, as well as Jane Bassnett, who I've mentioned, and Darren White, who is known as Ranga the Trainer on Twitter. And both of them are real experts on how to use Edpuzzle. So there's some basic information there, but there's also information around differentiation and other ways of using Edpuzzle for, say, feedback, for example. So really, really useful. If you're into Edpuzzle, do check out that video. Okay. Let's carry on. Wheel of Names is another tool which is great for promoting speaking and writing. As you can see, you've got 4 different wheels here. Let me just give you a flavor of how this works if you haven't seen this before. So you can put in different random names, for example, and it will then allow you to pick those names individually. And then you can then ask them to do an activity based on the name that comes up. Okay, so in this example, John has come up. I could then ask John to answer a question in the target language. So in addition to names, you could write in bits of text, for example. You could have sentence starters. You could have verbs, lots of different ideas on how you could do this. Now, if I were to make my own, what I would do, this is just the default wheel here. I can now get rid of all of these different items here, and I can start putting in my own text. And you can have as many items as you want to, basically. You can also add an image as well, which is really handy. So I wanted to go to a website such as autodraw.com. Then I could draw a picture, as I'm going to be doing right now. As you can see, we've got a cat here. I'm going to show you how to recreate that. So I'm going to choose the color black, and I've got the auto draw icon enabled. So now I'm going to draw very quickly a cat with a mouse, which is not the easiest thing to do, particularly when I'm being recorded live, but you get the idea. Now I'm going to put a couple of eyes, and there we are. And you can see at the top of the screen, Google, this is a Google tool. They're trying to work out what this scribble is supposed to be. They think it might be a rabbit or a shoe or a leaf, but of course it's supposed to be a cat. So I click on that, and now it's a cat. I can now resize this if I wanted to. Like that. I can make it fit exactly where I want it to go. I can also fill it as well with the fill tool. Choose the color like that. Suddenly I've got a yellow cat. Then to download it, I click here. I click the download option, and I can just download it like that. There we are. And then I can go back to my wheel of names. I can click on the image option, add image like this. I can choose my picture, click open. Now I've got a cat. So you could repeat the same for all the other sections if you wanted to. You can also customize the wheel like this. You can choose to have it with no sound if you wanted to. You can choose how long it takes to spin. You can choose how many items you want to have, up to 1,000, which is obviously completely silly. After spin, you can also have it with no sound if you want to. You can choose not to have confetti. You can also put in an expression. Instead of "we have a winner," you could write something else if you wanted to. And you can even have an image in the middle of your wheel if you wanted to. So you would just click on image at center of the wheel. You click there, you click upload image, you choose your picture of your cat, you click open, and there it is, like that. So you click OK, it now looks like that. And if I want to share this, I can click share, I can click continue, I can give it a name like this, I can click continue again. I can now copy the link like that, and away we go. Okay, so that's some simple ideas on how you can use Wheel of Names. As you can see, I've got some other examples here. The second wheel, I'm using the keyboard, emoji keyboard Chrome extension to add different emojis here. So if I click on that, I'll give you a flavor of how that works. I can spin the wheel, and as you can see, one of the 3 items will come up in one go, and then these are things that I've chosen to put in. I would then expect a student to say a sentence around his cat playing football and reading a book, for example. Okay, so that's how that works. And then the third one is just the auto draw idea I've shown you already. And the last one is using Bitmojis to create an activity as well. If you want to have lots of wheels running at the same time on your screen, then you can use tab resize for that. You can have up to 4 wheels across the screen, which is really helpful, I think. And if you're into sentence builders, which is a type of set of columns whereby you choose one item from each column, you can then generate random sentences based on a sentence builder. Wheel of Names is a great way of being able to harness that. So you just spin each wheel so that you get one item per column, and that will then generate a sentence for you. Wheel of Names, also you can split the screen in the way I've talked about. This is using another Chrome extension. There's one called Tab Scissors and Tab Glue. Tab Scissors allows you to split the screen and have it in 2 separate windows. Tab Glue allows you to put them back again. There's also a free Chrome extension called Dualess, which is DUALLESS. And that's, again, Karen Longman talking about using Wheel of Names for practicing verbs, tenses, making sentences, you name it, it does it. And then Jane, again, incorporating Wheel of Names within her class notebook, which is useful if you're working in a Microsoft environment. Classroom Screen is another way in which you can incorporate your Wheel of Names into Classroom Screen. I'm just going to show you live now how this works. So all I have to do is go to Classroom Screen like this, classroomscreen.com. Okay, it's completely free to have one screen. You just click on Launch Now like this, and you can then choose your background. If you want to click here, for example, and choose a different background, like, I don't know, this one, for example, there it is. If I want to add in my Wheel of Names, I click on Media, I click Embed, I can then paste in the link, click Open Website, there it is, and I can now resize that to fit whatever size I would like. I can then move that over, say, here. I can also click on Random Name, and I can put in some different names here. That I then click choose, and I then spin the wheel like that. So let's say this name has come up, and then I could then ask that child to then talk about this particular word, or it could be an image, etc. You get the idea. And there's other things you can do as well. You can add in dice if you want to do some dice activities, or text option, or drawing option, or a stopwatch, and so on and so forth. Okay, so that's Classroom Screen. There's also another recent tool that came out, which is called Spinner Wheel, which is this one. As you can see, I've got an animated GIF here to show you how it works. So it's similar to Wheel of Names, but you can have up to 8 wheels on the same screen at the same time. So in this example, again, I've used the name picker option. In the second wheel, I've got individual emojis. In the third one, I've got 3 emojis per section. In the fourth one, I've got a sentence starter like at the weekend I, or in the summer I, or what have you. And then on the fifth one, I've got different images which you take from Unsplash in order to create your speaking prompt. And you've got some different links here to give you some other ideas on how you can use this in the languages classroom. You can also have it going, the answers that all come up, they can either come up vertically or horizontally if you prefer. Okay, here is a document which I wrote last year around speaking homeworks and exam revision. You can access it via the Google Doc link at the bottom here, and it gives you lots and lots of different ideas on how you can practice listening and speaking skills, as well as giving audio feedback. which you should find useful. Flipty.net is another free tool, which is based on a Google Sheet. So you go to each activity type, you click on the instructions, it explains what you need to do. You need to create a Google Sheet based on the template that they give you. You then add in the different items into that Google Sheet, and then you can then generate the activities based on that. And there's a whole range of activities you can create. For example, Flipty Randomizer, Flipty Name Picker, Flipty Quiz Show, Flipty Manipulatives, and so on and so forth. So that's really, really nice. And I'm going to give you a flavor of some of the ways in which you can use this. So this is the Flipty Quiz Show. You just click on the link here, which will take you to the example. You click on the instructions, and you simply, as I said, copy the template, and then you can add in any question, any answer that you would like. So a good way of practicing a whole set of different ideas over, say, 6 weeks or a whole year of study around a language. Great way for promoting retrieval practice as well. This is another one sort of based on a hangman type of activity. So you put in the individual words in the Google Sheet, and then it will then generate this snowman activities. Then the students have to guess the different letters as a whole class activity. Might be better with younger ones, that one I would suggest. This is the randomizer that I talked about already. So you can just spin the wheel, and it will then pick one item per column, and it will then appear on the screen like this. You can also, you have a little white box here, which you can't see in the screenshot. If you click on that, then when you spin the wheel, the answers will appear nice and large in the middle of the screen as a sentence, which is really cool to see. This is what it's based on. This is an example of a sentence builder whereby you've got the 4 different columns here. All you have to do is populate them with your own content, and then it will then generate many different random sentences based on the content you put in this sentence builder. So really useful for practicing speaking and writing. These are some testimonials from different teachers who are using a Flipty Randomizer. So as you can see, you've got primary languages, Alice Smith School here, talking about using it for generating vocabulary. Miss B. German, who's head of department in the West Midlands in the UK, using it for time phrases, pronouns, and verbs. Jade Redden, who's talking about a video that Mike Elliott created, who's head of department in the south of England. And essentially what he was suggesting is that you can record your screen a bit like as we did with Flipgrid earlier. You record your screen while spinning the wheel, and each time an item comes up, a student then, as a homework task, has to pronounce the sentence which comes up and then translate it into their mother tongue. And that works really, really nicely, I think, as a way of practicing speaking at home. This is my friend, Mrs. Bellacat, on Twitter, and she here has done some step-by-step guides on how to use Flipty Manipulatives to practice, Flipty Randomizer to practice ideas in the target language, as well as for translation work as well. So that's also useful. This is the video clip which I just talked about by Mike Elliott. I haven't got time to play this now, but you would just click on the link and you'd see exactly what it is that Mike is suggesting, which I've already talked about. So that's some homework for you there. Here's some other ideas on how you can create your own Flipty manipulatives activity. This is whereby you, in fact, let me just show you this live. It's probably going to be better if I click here and I just quickly show you it live. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Flippity like this. I'm going to go to where it says manipulatives and click instructions. And then I'm going to click here where it says copy this template. So I've made a copy of this template by clicking here. And then you can see that what's going to happen now is it will then generate this sheet like this. I can now click on the first item like that. I can now drag over all of these here and delete like that, and likewise here, and delete that as well. Let's just get rid of that as well. Okay, and then I'm going to write in a sentence such as, I went to the cinema. Now I'm doing this as individual words, but you could do them as chunks if you wanted to. And then here I'm going to go back to Vocaroo, which I now need to load again. This, and I can actually record my voice saying the following. I went to the cinema. So I've done that, click save and share, copy the link, go back to my Google Sheet, and I'm going to paste in the link like this. And then I'm going to click the file option, share, and publish to web. Okay, I click publish. This is the same routine with all of them. I publish that. I then click get the link here. That's my link. I click on it, and here's the activity. Okay, so as you can see, I've got the audio here. I click on the audio like that, and let's have a listen. I went to the cinema, and then I have to then put that into the correct order. So I went to the cinema, and then you'd have to take a screenshot to show that you've done the work correctly. And you could do that using the quick share screenshot, which I talked about already, and share it with the teacher. So that's a simple way of doing listening practice asynchronously for free. Okay, let's carry on. This is whereby a teacher, Jérôme Nogues, has put in a YouTube clip into Flippity Manipulatives, and he's also color-coded some of the items. So all the quantities, for example, are in green, and the verbs are in purple. And again, you have to then just drag and drop the slides or the tiles into the correct order, like that. This, again, is based on a sentence builder. This is by Elena Diaz, who's Teacher Diaz on Twitter. So she's got 5 different audio clips, and the students have to put in the chunks into the correct order. So a good way of practicing listening through chunking. This is another languages teacher up in Edinburgh, Sonia Fedrizi, who has uploaded an audio file, created some chunks, and then the students have to then listen to them and put them into the correct order based on what's said in the audio. You can also make a Flippity board game as well. This is Sarah Bell, who is the head of department at Inverclyde Academy. And as you can see here, she's made a Flippity board game, which she did as part of a Tilt webinar for us recently. So there's a step-by-step guide on how she did that. If you want to practice pronunciation in Google Docs, a nice way of doing that is using voice typing. So this is what you do. You simply click on the tools menu in Google Docs, you select voice typing. You can then choose the language that you speak in which case here I've chosen French, but obviously you could choose English. You then enable the microphone, you click on it, you then speak in that language, and it will then make your voice turn into text, which is really useful. That's in a Google environment. In a Microsoft environment, you've got the dictation option. So this works in Microsoft Word Online. You simply click on the dictate option. You then click on the cog here. You can then customize it. You choose the language. You enable your microphone. You then click on it to start listening to you, and then you then speak into that language, and it will then turn your voice into text. So both of those are free ways in which you can use your voice as a way of reducing the amount of use of the mouse that you have, and you can just use your voice, which is great for practicing pronunciation. Another idea is in a Google Docs environment is to do what's called live writing. There's a little blog post here that was written a few years ago now by Kaylee Merrick, who's now a senior leader in a school, but is also a languages teacher. And she just goes through on the idea of how to set this up. The idea is that you have a table here. You have the names of the students in the first column. In the second column, they have their text, which they're writing. And you in real time are giving feedback to the students on what it is that they need to do to improve. And then as a result of that, they're then changing their text in real time based on your feedback. So a really, really nice idea, I think. And you could do exactly the same thing, say, using Class Notebook in a Microsoft environment. Talking of that, this is how you can make your own collaborative online PowerPoint. So you just make a PowerPoint, you then make it available to anybody to edit in your class. You then make a template on each slide, which is the same, and then the students then know exactly what it is that they need to do, and they can all work individually on their own slide. You can see here that it's got the initials of the different students to show that they were all working on their own individual slide. If you had 2 icons next to each other, it would mean they were working together on the same slide, which is not necessarily what you want them to do. So that was posted by L West, MFL. This is a YouTube clip that was created by Joe Pickering, who's Pixie Jojo on Twitter, saying how you can set up this type of collaborative PowerPoint to encourage collaboration and to give whole class writing opportunities. This is, again, Jane Bassnett, who's created a Loom recording, again, showing how to set up the same type of activity, which works really nicely in a remote teaching or hybrid teaching context. I'm now going to talk a little bit about Mote. Mote is a Chrome extension, which has been around for a while now, about 1.5 years or so, I think. When it first came out, it was absolutely amazing for giving audio feedback in different comments within Google Docs, Google Slides, and Google Classroom. So you can see here, for example, that the little purple circle has appeared with a white M in it. And all you have to do is click on that, and you can record for free 30-second motes, which will then appear in that particular Google Doc. Now, for free, it used to be that you had unlimited motes, but as of this month, January 2022, you're now limited to 20 motes per month, which is a bit frustrating, but I understand that they have to do that in order to make their company viable financially. So what I've done is I've upgraded to the premium account, which works out about £40 for the year. And that means that you can then have unlimited motes. So in addition to being able to leave audio comments, you can also have transcription. So you could have that in a range of languages. So whatever you say can also be turned into a transcript, which is really useful. If I go on to the next slide, you'll see that you can also add audio directly into Google Slides as well, which is really, really simple and easy. Here's an animated GIF to show you how that works. So what you do is you click on the mote icon here. This was created by Jake Miller. You then record your audio by clicking on the icon in the middle of the screen. It will then add your audio into the slide, and you can choose whether it plays automatically or on a click. And as a result of that, it's a great way of promoting speaking and audio feedback at the same time. So that's also really, really useful, I think, from the point of view of promoting speech in languages. Okay. Recently as well, they've added the option to add mote into Google Forms. So for example, you can have now a listening comprehension activity whereby you record your audio by pasting the link in the description in the Google form. And then you can also have audio answers as well. So it could be multiple choice, A, B, C, D, E, with different audio responses there as well. So that's also really, really useful and all part of the Chrome extension. You can also create your own audio QR code. So when you record your mote, if you go to the mote extension, you click on the icon in the extension bar, and then you click on activity and engagement, you'll then see that all the motes are there. You can then click on the share option, and it will give the option to export your mote as a QR code. And as a result of that, you can use that for, say, audio QR code treasure hunts, for example, plus other ways of giving audio feedback by sticking the QR codes in a student's book, for example. There was an event back in August 2021 called MotorCon, which features 2 sessions of 3 hours each from educators from around the world showing how you can use mote in interesting, creative ways. So I'd really encourage you to have a look at those, because lots of those ideas are very relevant to how they can be used in the languages classroom as well. Okay. Whiteboard.fi is another fantastic tool for formative assessment. For those teachers who were wanting to use mini whiteboards in the classroom when we first went into the pandemic, I always recommended they try out Whiteboard.fi, which allows you to create your teacher board, and then each student gets their own individual board. They can't collaborate on each other's board. They only can write on their own board. And what they then do is they can then draw, they can write text, or they can add images. You can also take an image and push it to all the boards in one go, which could be a type of template you want them to then fill in. But it's really, really good for sort of question and answer, grammar practice, storytelling, and so on and so forth. So you could say, for example, what did you do last weekend? And they all draw a picture, and then they have to then say what that picture means in the target language. Here are some comments from different teachers. For example, Miss Ganzorn saying, thank you again for Whiteboard.fi. It's the highlight of my lockdown. I think my year 10 will be forever grateful to you for it. So that was really lovely to see. And you've got some other lovely comments there as well. Here's a tutorial by Valerie David McGonnell, who's based in Ireland. And she's gone through step by step using the free presentational tool called Genially, just going through how you can use Whiteboard.fi in the languages classroom. Here also is a couple of blog posts. They're quite old now. One is sort of 8 years old. The other one's 9 years old. And it just shows you how, from 2 practicing languages teacher. One is Samantha Decker. The other one is Claire Hampson, on how you can use mini whiteboards. And all you'd have to do is replicate the ideas just in a digital context in Whiteboard.fi. And just a thought, I hope you found this session useful. If you would like to consider booking me to do further webinars for you, do let me know. Here are 18 example sessions that are all around technology and how they can be used in the languages classroom, either for remote teaching or hybrid teaching or face-to-face teaching. There's something for everyone there. Do have a look, and I can design something bespoke for you if you're interested. And here is the short URL for the presentation. So feel free to scan that QR code or to share the link with your other contacts. Here, there, and everywhere. And Welcome everybody to my session around sharing good language teaching practice in the new normal. It's an absolute pleasure.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, teachers. These were a lot of great and amazing digital resources and tools. Thank you for your comments. We've been watching them. Now it's time for a short break. So let's go get our short break and let's come back for our next session at 5:10. See you back. Great to be back, teachers. Don't miss the opportunity to register and enjoy Be Built 2023, moving forward, learning together. It's one of the main events in English language teaching in the Americas. The date is February 17 and 18. Throughout November, you can subscribe with a special price of 850 pesos for Prony teachers. Remember to use the code PRM202311. If you didn't get it, don't worry. Please click on the link that appears in the chat. So let's continue with the next session. And I'm very happy and pleased to welcome Ms. Valeria Alvarez, a teacher trainer who has trained an impressive 6,000 teachers throughout Mexico and South America. Ms. Valeria Alvarez.
Everybody. Hi, everybody. It's so good to be here. I'm very pleased and I'm very honored to having the opportunity to be here. Let me just talk a little bit about me, myself, and my presentation, and then discuss a little bit the topic that we will be discussing today. Let me just click on, there you go. Hello, everybody. Is there any teachers? Are there any teachers from Aguascalientes? Because I've seen some names that I can recall. There are a lot of teachers from Aguascalientes that I've met. And today's topic is, why is phonics a good starting point to level my students? And before we do begin with that, I want to talk about a little bit about myself. Well, my name is, as you know, Valeria. I am an English teacher. I've been an English teacher for quite some time now. I started teaching very young children and then moved on to higher levels. And then I was part of the academic team in the state of Aguascalientes, which really led me into training teachers and really feeling what it is to be a teacher in our public schools in our country. Thank you for all of your hellos. It's good to see that I have people from Puebla and all over. Well, anyways, I do have a sense of what goes on in the public institutions. And it is a pleasure for me to be here today. And I just want to say that I do take my hats off for you teachers who have been working with children during this pandemic. And now that you're back at schools, I know that you're facing lots of problems. Oh, I see people from Durango, from Puebla. Hi, Sonora. Yes, I've met people from Sonora. I've met people from Puebla. I've been all over training teachers in this phonics world. And as I was saying, there you have been facing lots of challenges. First of all, the challenge that you had in order to change the way you were teaching before the pandemic. One day, you had to change everything. And there's people who did not really know a lot about technology. And it was a huge challenge for them to be able to start teaching through technology. And if after all you're still here, I do take my hat off. And you have all of my respects. And I remember myself being in the middle of the pandemic and thinking that teachers and doctors and nurses had the most impact in the pandemic. And seeing you here today trying to learn new ways of leveling your students, because now you have students with different levels on the same age, and teachers and students who have probably not been in a classroom for quite some time now. Let me tell you that there are ways in which you can level them. And I'm here today to talk about those ways. First of all, the name of my topic, as I said, is why is phonics a good starting point to level students? So we will be focusing on phonics. And I have to be honest that I have to be honest, and I like saying things the way they are. I'm not a very, okay, I'm going to say it. I'm not a fan of phonetics. See, I have to say that. I'm a huge fan of phonics, but not a big fan of phonetics. Do you know what the difference is? And write it on the chat so I can see what your ideas are. Is there a difference between phonics and phonetics? For me, phonics, yay. Phonetics, yuck. Okay, let me see. No comments yet. Okay, I'm gonna wait for a little bit to see if I have someone saying something about this topic. You left me thinking, someone says. No, someone else says. Complex, yes. Okay, yes, complex. That's phonetics are the sounds of the letters. That's a good starting point. Okay, phonetics are the sounds of the letters, yes. And what about phonics? Phonetics is the science, okay, I'm going to read Laura. I'm going to go back. Laura Margarita Rivera. Phonetics is the science that studies the sounds of a language, and phonics is like the easy way to teach it. That is very good, Laura. Thank you for your comments. Let's see what science says. Okay, phonics, it's a system for teaching people how to read languages that uses alphabets, focusing on the sounds associated with each group of letters. So what she said is 100 correct. And phonetics is the science of describing linguistic sounds accurately using special symbols and terminology. And that is what makes it complicated, especially, well, for people like me. I find it complicated using the specific symbols and the specific terminology. Okay, there's people saying it is difficult for me, it is complex. You know what? Today, I'm going to tell you how we can make it easy and simple. Okay, so let's begin by asking ourselves these questions. How did you learn to read? Let's start with the first one. How did you learn to read in Spanish? How did you learn to read in Spanish? Write your answers. Thank you for all of your participation. I see lots of comments. Thank you so much. How did you learn to read in Spanish? It depends where you learned the English. Yes, by listening, by repeating sounds. Oralia, it's so good to read you. It's great to hear from you. By sounds, by syllables. Yes, by syllables. Let's see. Who remembers? Mi, mamá, me, mima. Do you remember? Ma, me, mi, mo, mu. Sa, se, si, so, su. There's people saying it's been a while. I don't remember. Yeah, that might happen. But you know what? It is very, oh my God, what happened? Okay. Oh, sorry. Yes, by separating syllables. Nowadays, that methodology is not highly used. And do you remember El Libro Mágico? Yes, that was very common back in the days. And if you go to a Spanish teacher today and you tell them that this is the way that they should teach how to read and write in Spanish, mi mamá ama la masa? Yes, sounds like, yeah, it sounds like El Libro Mágico. They will say, that is not the way that you should be teaching. So, but my question is, did you learn what I did? This is how I learned. And I did learn a lot. See, I even finished a master's degree. So like I would say in Spanish, se logró. Yes? But how did I learn to read in English? Do you remember how you learned how to read in English? In English, repeating the sounds on each word. Thank you, Martha. Onomatopoeic, very good. Thank you, Martha. That same thing happens with the English. Repetition, practicing when you have heard the sound previously. Yes, these are great ideas. Repeating words, learning vowels, listening and repeating. Thank you, Eva. Reading and listening audios at the same time. Yes, there's people who learn through phonetics, not a lot, because this is not a very popular way of teaching how to read and write. So if I wanted to share my story, see, opposite to what you might think, I learned English when I was in 4th grade of primary. That's when my English learning began. Not before, not when I was young, not when my brain had plasticity. And this plasticity terminology is something that I really like talking about, because when we teach English at young ages, it does make an impact. Not only because children will learn a second language, but it will have an impact on the way they think. They will begin being more analytic. They will begin comparing their mother tongue with the English that they're learning. And I love sharing this experience. When my son was very young and he was in kindergarten, one day he came to me and said, "Mommy," I'm going to speak a little bit in Spanish so I don't miss like the fun of the story. He said, "Mami, el inglés está como muy raro." And I was, yes, why? And he said, "Es que mira, mamá, es como al revés. En inglés decimos, en español decimos el carro azul. Y en inglés decimos the blue car. ¿Ves? Al revés." I was such a proud mom at that time that my son, at the age of 5, was being able to make analyses and comparisons between both languages. So, teaching English is not only an opportunity for students to widen their horizons. It is an opportunity that you will give them for their brain to work better. So if you get your students to be conscious about the language that they're learning, then you're doing a great job, which I'm sure you are. Now, I was going to tell you about me learning English. So I didn't begin when I was super young. I began when I was a little bit older, and I already knew the alphabetic code in Spanish. I didn't know anything about the alphabetic code or the rules in English, but I did know in Spanish. So I remember the English teacher coming to me and say, Valeria, can you please read these two sentences? And I would go, y lo becaque, y li que apples. Does this sound familiar? I think it does. Why does that happen? Because your students already have a code in their brains. And they don't know, and they try to use that code in Spanish in order to be able to use it in English. But it doesn't work that way, and no one explains it to us. I remember my English teacher saying, no, Valeria, you don't say y lo becaque, you say I, and she asked me to repeat, I love cake. She didn't say anything about the magic E or the dropping E at the end that gives the A on cake a long sound instead of a short sound. Or she didn't explain that there were many sounds that vowels could do, the short and the long. She didn't say anything about the double trouble or the double consonants in apples. She didn't say anything. At that moment, she was saying, okay, you memorize this like the way it is, and that's the way you should say it. I didn't ask any questions, I just learned it. I just said, I love cake, I like apples. And I was very, very good at English. And that didn't make me smarter than my other students or my friends. That only meant that I had good ear. And I could memorize the sounds. And then I would relate them to the letters. So I was making my own code in my head without anybody explaining it to me. Now we know that the way we teach how to read and write is crucial. You were saying by repeating, by listening and saying, by listening and following the print, that is whole world method. And that only means that if you have good memory, you will be able to learn. If you do not have good memory, you will not be learning. So that is the whole world method. Now, we also had at some point, the analytic phonics. What does that mean? Well, it meant that they would give you many examples on how sounds could be represented in words for you or your students in this case to be able to make their own rules in their minds. So it didn't really work because children at that age do not have the potential to make that higher order thinking skill of analysis and being able to set their own rules. But don't worry. We know, imagine that you had to learn all of the words by memory. And if you are here today, if you are an English teacher and you learned by the whole word method, I have to say that I do take my hat off, because that means that you have great memory. But what happens? Well, in the whole word memory, you start memorizing words as wholes. For example, when you see Coca-Cola, you don't go in k, o, k, a, k, Hola. Now you just see the sign and you know that it says Coca-Cola until you memorize it. Imagine that you have to memorize every single word there is in English. The work is endless. You would never be able to finish learning by memory all of the words that there are in the English language. But don't worry, there is synthetic phonics. And what is synthetic phonics? Well, synthetic phonics will teach us through phonics. And we said phonics. What is phonics? Phonics is the system that you use in order to teach the correspondence between sounds and letters. Yes. Yes. English has a correspondence between sounds and letters. So, for me, all of the evidence, scientific and my own personal experience, points to synthetic phonics being the most effective method to use. Now, what is that? Oh, I see rhyming songs, drills, Racia's method. Yes, Racia's method is very good for drilling. I had the experience to go there. And I know what you're talking about, Solomon, and it is a great method. What else? Let's see. Yes, Alma, children are not mature enough to do high level of analysis. That's just what I said. I often tell my students if the words sound familiar to Spanish. So yes, if we explain this very complex code in a simple way, we will be super successful with our students. Now let's see, why is English so complicated? English is complicated. And also, not only English, we will talk about that in the next slide, but why is reading so complicated? Because it involves many processes that go on in the head of our students at the same time. See, I remember my children when they were super young trying to learn how to read in Spanish. They could decode. The concept of decoding is you see a letter, you put a sound to that letter, and then you join it to make words. So for example, my children, oh, it's good that I'm here, would read, let's say, Cuentos para Tlacuaches, and they would go, los dos tlacuaches la miraron sorprendidos, at that pace probably. And I remember when I was their mom, sitting with them, trying to read more and more with them, I would ask, ¿Cómo estaban los tlacuaches? And they would answer, and I would almost die. Mi hijo no sabe, no entiende. But you know what? The thing is, all of the power that the brain had was working on looking at the letters in the book and trying to make the sounds for them to make words. So, how did my children become better readers? Practice and practice and practice. If we do not give our children the opportunity to practice the skills that, I'm not just talking about reading, I'm talking about all of the skills, speaking, reading, writing, then they will not be professional in that. I can hear a lot of people coming to me and saying, Valeria, el inglés no es para mí. Yo ya me peleé con el inglés y no nos hemos contentado. That's funny. Me peleé con el inglés y no nos hemos contentado. And I said, why? How do you feel? And they would say, I can read it and write it, but I cannot speak it. Why did that happen? I think it is because the teacher didn't have enough opportunities for them to practice. They didn't have enough chances to practice. I love that you're saying that you practice with your students. I love that you're saying that you grew up in the 80s listening to music and that really helped you. Yes. Learning to read involves setting up processes by which the words on the page can be recognized and understood. So first you have to know how to decode, and then you will be able to read and comprehend. Now, this was not supposed to happen like this. It was supposed to appear one by one, but I'm going to ask the question anyway. How many sounds are there in Spanish? Okay, chat. How many sounds? Listen to the question. And okay, don't Google. That's cheating. How many sounds are there in Spanish? 42 sounds in Spanish? I don't think so. 24? Muchos. Yeah, I know, Daniela, muchos. And how many 28, 32? ¿Quién da más? Okay, and how many letters are there in the Spanish alphabet? 26, 27, 27, 32, 32. Okay, now there are 24 sounds in Spanish in Mexico, okay? Because we don't have the ¿qué haces? ¿Qué haces, chica? Eso mola. No, we don't have the sound. And how many letters? We have 27 letters. So what does that mean? Well, that means that our code, our alphabet code, is very simple. And that is how our students' brains are working right now, because that's their mother tongue. So for example, I know it's super small, but it's just to give you a visual idea on how it works. So for example, we have the sound and the only way that you can write the sound is con la letra That's it. But for the sound, the more complicated is the sound s. That's the most complicated. Because you can write it con S, con Z, con CI, con CE, con X, con SC, con SCI, con SC. That is the most complicated thing that we have in our alphabet. But what happens with English? Okay, same question, but in English. How many sounds are there in English? 100, says Ceci. Ceci Hernandez. 124 vowels in English. 27, 31, 42, 44. Yeah, Adriana, Leonardo. Okay. 19 sounds and vowels. Let's see. And how many letters do we have in English? Letters. How many letters? 26. Very good, Rosa Ugalde. 26 letters, because in English they don't have ñ, but the rest of them we've got them. So there's people who say that there are 44 sounds or more in English. There are a lot of ways that people teach those sounds, but most of them concentrates them into 42 sounds. And imagine being able to express 44 sounds with only 26 letters. So complicated. If I had invented English, I would have invented one symbol per each sound. And that would have been the easiest way of learning English for everybody. But no, Look at the alphabetic code in English. Look how this is not meant for you to be able to read what it says. It's just for you to give you an idea on how it looks. What happens is that 2 letters can make 1 sound. 3 letters can make 1 sound. 4 letters can make 1 sound. 1 sound can be expressed in many different ways. And that is what makes English complicated. So, pues ya me doy, renunciaré a mis horas because it's so complicated. No, I'm not here to tell you that. I'm here to tell you, I know, Selena, it's overwhelming. It looks overwhelming, but it's not really. The thing that you have to do is you have to teach the sounds. And if you teach the sounds and if you teach the system, then all of your students will begin at the same level. You teach the sound in a multi-sensory, motivating, and fun way. You use phonemic awareness. You insert a chip in their heads to be able to think about the way the sounds sound and the way they are expressed in print. You explain phoneme manipulation. You use blending. You use segmenting. You combine phonemes to make words. You separate phonemes you separate words in their phonemically. For example, let's see. How many sounds are there in hotter? Hotter. Hotter. O, t, hotter. We don't say hotter. We don't say sister. We say sister, brother. See, it's just 1 sound. Wow. And it's okay if you didn't know. You weren't taught to think like this. You just learned the words as a whole. So yes, we will teach sound system relationship. How do we set it up in the classroom? Oh, they were asking me, can you share the alphabetic code with us? Isela, you just Google alphabetic code in English and it'll appear, okay? How do we set it up in the classroom? Okay, we present it in a meaningful way. We address all of our students' auditive, visual, kinesthetics. We use songs, we use stories, we use movements. We make it meaningful. And we say, today we're going to learn the P sound. Everybody put your hands like this and go P, 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 as in pop. And every time your students see that sound and they don't remember that letter, and they don't remember how it sounds, you just go, and they will say, P. Oh, is it the same sound in Spanish? And I get close to the camera so I can see my mouth. P. Is it the same? P. Okay. Let's say, everybody do this. I know that you will look like crazy talking to your computer. But I've been talking to the computer for quite some time now, alone. And I need you to say the following word. Say pop. La princesa del pop. En español. Say it. La princesa del pop. Did you say it? Now let's try to say it in English. The pop princess. Is there a difference between, it's the same word, pop, 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 pop. There is a slight difference. In English, we use a lot more air. We go p, p, pop. And this, by me telling you this, I'm building your phonemic awareness. And that is what you should be doing with your students. See? Blending means putting the sounds together to make words. Now you presented t, then you presented a, then you presented p, and then you go t, ap, tap, t, ap, tap, and so on with more and more and more words. We have f, a, n, fan, a, n, an, a, n, man, t, a, n, tan, t, ap, tap. And if you use materials like this ones that are color-coded, it will be easier for your students. Now, I will give you a present. I know it's not Teacher's Day, but I will give you a present, and you will remember me for the rest of your lives. Now, what is this sound? Is it U? Is it O? Is it A? What is it? Is it U? Is it O? Is it A? Is it you? There's people saying you. O, A. Okay. I love using our Mexican folklore to explain this sound, because everybody knows El Chavo del Ocho. Do you remember de qué eran las aguas que vendía El Chavo del Ocho? Do you remember? Era algo así como, no me lo sé de memoria, me lo debería aprender, pero era algo así como, son aguas de limón, les vendo agua de limón que parece de Jamaica, pero sabe a tamarindo, or something like that. Now, ahí está, de tamarindo, pero saben a limón. Yes, something like that. Okay, this is the same as las aguas de limón of El Chavo del Ocho, because it wants to trick us into U. Para nosotros, que hablamos español, siempre que vemos este grafema, nuestro subconsciente nos traiciona y queremos decir U. But no. Okay, I know I can't see your faces, and I wish I could, but I know everybody will be looking at their screen doing it, okay? Everybody put your mouths as if you were going to say the O sound. Don't make a sound, just put your mouth into the O sound, like this. Okay, now that you are with that sound, with that mouth, I need you, using that mouth, I need you to make the sound of an A, okay? But with the mouth of O, like this. O, O, O. That is your O sound. Yay! Did you like your present? You will remember me forever, because it's not Buzz Lightyear or Buzz Lightyear. It's Buzz Lightyear. It's not Coop or it's not Cop. It's Cup. It's not umbrella. It's not umbrella. It's not umbrella. It's umbrella. Great. Nice. Did you like my present? That's good. You're welcome. You're welcome, Araceli. You're welcome, Beatriz. Good. Now, another present. Now, we have the first one. It's the B sound. In Spanish, we call it la B labial because, let's see. Oh, we still have 10 minutes. Okay. Because we put our lips together like this. We blow air and we make that sound. B, b, b. Okay, everybody say b, b, b. Very good. Now, the second one, the one of my name, which it's my favorite. It's called in Spanish, ahí nos lo está diciendo Antonio Arellano, perfecto, es la B labiodental. Ok. ¿Por qué se llama labiodental? Because the correct sound is made when you put your lip, your bottom lip, and you push it with your teeth and you blow air like this. V, v, vest. B, b, best. V, v, vest. Now, you guys are the best. And I wear a vest. In Spanish, the other day I was reading something from La Real Academia Española, and they were saying that in Spanish, there is now no difference between these two, that it is really irrelevant the way you say it, because with all of the knowledge that I have of phonics, I've heard myself saying vidrio, for example, instead of vidrio. And I've heard myself saying, my name is Valeria. My name is Valeria. But it doesn't matter in Spanish. It really doesn't matter because it doesn't change the meaning. In English, it does. It does change the meaning. So if you say, oh, you guys are the best, then you're doing it correct. But if you say, oh, can I borrow a best? O sea, ¿cómo? ¿Quieres que te preste el mejor? I know, something that Araceli just said. It's complicated with the mask. Yes, Araceli. Thank you for pointing that out. I agree. And I'm super happy that I know that in some of the states, it's now not mandatory. Please let me know if in the chat if in your state you have to use a mask. In Aguascalientes, it's not mandatory. So if you decide as a parent, if you want your children to use a mask, or yes, me too, Maria del Carmen. I hate the face mask as well. And imagine what an impact that will have in our students. Can you see how important it is, the position of our tongue and our mouth and our teeth in order to make the correct sounds, not only in English, but also in Spanish? I was talking to a friend the other day whose children is now one of the called now es un niño COVID because they were born in the COVID and then they are not very sociable and they don't speak very well. But yes, a way that I can give you to go out of this is I've seen masks with, I mean, like the whole mask, regular mask with the front part transparent. I don't know if that will work. In Tabasco, it's not mandatory. We use mask in class. Yes, we continue using masks. I know, but you know what? This is going to finish. I know that you use masks, but when you present the sounds, you can go back, you can move backwards, lower your mask a little bit, and explain the sound like this. Thank you for saying nice things about my English, but see, I'm a phonics teacher. I have to speak very well. It's my duty. Okay, now No one else in these people, teachers from Mexico who are watching me will ever say, frutos rojos bien, a sus alumnos. Never again. Because when we say berry, we mean blueberry, strawberry, raspberry, cranberry, all of the berries. But if we say very good, then we're doing a great job. Okay? Now, so this is another present for you. Now, segment. How are we doing in time? 5 more minutes? Yay. Okay, in segmenting, we need to break words into individual sounds. So our students are aware on how many sounds there are in words. And if you know the sounds that there are in words, you will find ways in which you will represent in print, que quiere decir escribir o representar en una hoja o poner tarjetas juntas o miles de actividades que puedes hacer in order to make them right. So, for example, if I tell you, everybody help me count the sounds in the word cat. K-a-t, cat. How many sounds are there? K-a-t, cat. 3 sounds. Okay. The sound k. Ah, pues escribe así. The sound a. Ah, pues escribe así. The sound t. Ah, pues escribe así. And that is the practice that will give you in your students the ability that they need in order to be able to read correctly. You can do dictations, you can do air spelling, you can read decodables, you can sing, you can play, you can blend, you can segment. All of these ideas were written in the chat. Thank you for all of your ideas and your comments. And there are some words in English, and I saw this question earlier, and I didn't answer it on purpose. ¿Cómo les explico a mis alumnos I? The sound is I, but you write it I, but the sound is I. There are some words in English that are called high frequency words that you have to learn them by the memory method. But with all of the ideas that you've had into teaching the sounds earlier, it would be faster and it will be easier for them. Así que no les voy a pedir que se memoricen todas las palabras en inglés, but you will be learning some words that are called high frequency words, but we will do it systematically. Yes, Andy. High frequency words is the same as sight words. Thank you, Carmina, for your comment. Thank you. Amazing. Well, whew, right on time. The same as tricky words. There's other materials that call them tricky words. I'm very happy to read all of your nice comments. This is a good starting point for your children. If we begin teaching in a different way, if we start thinking differently, and this is the team of the people at Vista Higher Learning that have great materials with phonics that can give you more ideas on materials that you can see that use this methodology that I talked about. There's my Facebook page where you can look at me performing and get to see lots of information. Annie, can you see Anna? Anna here, Ana Gonzalez. This is her WhatsApp. So if you want to contact her, just click on there and she will be giving you extra information about the materials. There is a blog for Discover Phonics. There is a blog for Vista Higher Learning. in which you can post your questions, and maybe I'll be around trying to answer them. It was a great pleasure to be with you here today. I don't know if someone, Ale, can you help me put on the chat what I sent on the private chat so everybody can see it? I don't have access to that.
Definitely, we'll get to that. You will have those blogs. Is that what you shared, right?
Yes, thank you.
Yes, don't worry about it. Thank you, Ms. Valeria, for this very interesting, and I'm sure we need more sessions so we can learn so much from you. It's an honor having you here at the Jornada Nacional.
Thank you, Ale. It's an honor for me. I remember all of you because people are asking me, do you remember me? Do you remember me? Yes, I remember you. I remember all of you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, Valeria.
Bye-bye.
All right, teachers. Now we are moving on to our final session. And it is my pleasure to welcome back, the next person who's coming is Mr. Milton Bradbury. Yes, he will be showing us some free resources that the British Council has to offer to teachers and English learners. Welcome, Mr. Milton.
Hello again, everybody. Nice to see you all again. Congratulations on making it to the end of yet another day. And those of you who are still here, well done. Thank you very much. I'll only take up 30 minutes of your time. I'm Milton. You may remember me from yesterday. I showed you the free resources that British Council provide on teaching English. That is a website that is for teachers and for teachers who are developing and teacher trainers. And today I'm going to show you the British Council website, Learn English. You may have seen it before. It's one of the first things that come up on Google when you look up something to do with practicing English. I'm going to show you 3 different parts. Learn English for kids, Learn English for teens, and Learn English for adults. Okay? I'm going to be keeping my eyes on the chat. If you have any questions, I'll do my very best to respond. So let's begin, because there's quite a lot to get through. This time, I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to show you actually on the website how to navigate it. Yesterday, I showed a PowerPoint and I realized probably this is better. So I'm just going to share my screen right now. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, so let's begin. Okay, here we go. Great. So let's start. Learn English Kids. This is a website which is designed for children from the ages of primary or from 7 to 6 to 11. From 5 into 11. On this website, you can register. The way that you would set up the website for your child is the parent would register. They would register an account. It's completely free, and the parent will put in the name of their child. Once you register, you will receive an email with information on how for you to access the website as a parent, and also for how the child to access. There are 2 separate sides so that adults and children are not interacting. We need to keep that separate for child protection purposes. So let's go through the website a little bit. This is the main page. This is the home page. On the home page, similar to Teaching English, you have the most up-to-date, the most recent content. So for example, here you have the most recent song, which is Hello, Hello, Hello. You can click on there to watch the video. You also have some information about what this website is. The different things that you can access while you're using it. But let's have a look at the different tabs. Here at the top, you can see Listen and Watch, Read and Write, Speak and Spell, grammar and vocabulary, fun and games, print and make. So listen, watch, listen and watch. You've got songs, short stories, poems, video zone, and how-to kids. On all of these tabs, you have content for a child to practice English at home. So for example, if we want to look at songs, you can search the songs by going through the alphabet, or alternatively, you could search here and you will also find the word. So here are some songs. Let's have a look at my favorite from when I was a child, An Old Lady Who Swallowed a Fly. Do you remember this song? It was definitely my favorite. So here, what you do is you listen to an additional song about an old lady who swallows a fly. You have two tabs here, help. So what the child needs to do the preparation task first and then listen to the song and do the activities. Here is the preparation task. You have to match the words to the picture. So here we have a cat. Where's a cat? Here we go. Cat. So you listen, you check, and then you scroll it down. Okay. Once you've finished, you check your answers. Or if you made some mistakes, you can try again. Then you watch the video, and then you have some games. Okay, and this is just for one song. If you remember, there are many, many songs. In addition to the songs, here are all the different types of songs that you can have for your child, for different topics, for different reasons, for different language. And here, there are also short stories, poems, video zone, and how-to videos. So let's look at the how-to videos. These are for children who like to build things, who like to do things with their hands, who like projects. So how to make a desk organizer, how to make a lantern. I like this one. This one's very nice. You have preparation tasks. So for the preparation task, you learn about the vocabulary for the different items. So for example, here we have a glass jar. Let's have a listen.
Glass jar.
A glass jar. And we put it there. Once you know all the items that you need, you can watch the video.
What a storm.
So what I think is very nice about these videos is that you often have children making the projects themselves. Then you have a game to practice the language and to practice what they remember from the video. If for whatever reason you cannot access the internet in your home or in your classroom, you can download the files. So for example, you can download the first task, the preparation task of printing the words. You can print the activity and print the answers. And then all of these tasks have a discussion activity where children can respond to these questions in the chat. Because I have a parent account, I can't demonstrate it for you, but the children will be able to. So this is watch, listen and watch. We also have write and read. So for children who need some writing and reading practice, we have magazines, Your Turn, reading practice, writing practice. Let's just have a look at reading practice. Here, again, you have different topics. Also, apart from it being organized in content, it's also organized by level. So here's a reading activity about digital citizenship. What does it mean to be a good citizen? So again, you have the preparation activity, you have the text, and then you have some games to practice. Okay? This is the same for reading, writing, Your Turn, and magazine. Speak and spell. So for children who need some support with practicing pronunciation, let's look at sounds. Let's have a look at button up. In this activity, you have to match the pairs. So this is an interactive activity. It's like memory game. So button. Oh, that's not a button. Zip. Oof. I'm not going to complete it now because I'm very slow. But you discover, you match the words, then you listen to the song and you practice the words. You practice the pronunciation of the words. You also have more difficult words for students, for kids who are a bit more confident and need a bit of a harder challenge. Here it's actually distributed in different features of pronunciation. So oo or ch or y. Silent letters like in the K in knit and not. So the good thing about this website is that it's also differentiated for different levels. Again, we have grammar and vocabulary. Let's have a look at the word games, because if your children are like the children I have taught, they like to play games. There's a game for ancient Egypt, for example, hieroglyphics and things like that. And you learn some words to play the game. Again, you would start. You listen, look at the letters.
Pyramids.
Oh, pyramids. And then you type, right? Okay. So you look for the first P. Sorry. You can say I'm not very good with games. Why? P, R. I'm looking for an R. Where's an R? Here we go. Oh, there we go. And I continue that way. Okay. Let's go back. And then there's even more games. Jokes and tongue twisters. Tongue twisters are one of my favorites for practicing pronunciation. Let's have a look at Fuzzy Wuzzy. So children can look at the tongue twister and listen. Me, I'm a little bit shy, so I want to listen to it first.
Fuzzy Wuzzy was a bear. Fuzzy Wuzzy had no hair. Fuzzy Wuzzy wasn't very fuzzy, was he?
There we go. See if I can do it. Fuzzy Wuzzy was
Fuzzy
a bear.
Wuzzy was a bear.
Fuzzy Wuzzy was a bear. Fuzzy Wuzzy had no hair. Fuzzy Wuzzy wasn't very fuzzy, was he? More or less, no? I need some practice. Okay. And then also print and make. So printing flashcards, printing crafts, printing worksheets, and printing worksheets to colour in. Let's have a look at colouring in. Again, let's choose the topic of camping. Let's focus on looking after the environment. So what you can do is you can print a camping picture to colour. Okay, it's this picture here, just to colour. So there you go. There is a huge amount of resources available. There's also tips for parents. If you go to the parents section, there are courses for parents, apps, helping your child, video tips, etc. So let's have a look. Helping your child. For a parent who needs some support with helping their child learn English. So for example, there are lots of different topics. Motivating your child, practical tips. Let's look at motivation. As you might have remembered from my chat, motivation and focusing on social and emotional learning is one of my interests. So here is an article giving tips to parents and also teachers about how to motivate their children. Okay, so making it fun, being enthusiastic, following personality and interests, giving your child some choice, independence, autonomy. Remember we were talking about that? Looking at your child's mood. So considering what their emotional state is. Lots of tips. It's fantastic. So you have that for parents, got video tips, apps, all sorts of things. You know, apps is the big thing at the moment, right? So apps for children to play games. Apps for them to practice. Okay? Learn English Kids Playtime is very popular, and you can download it on the iTunes store, or you can also download it on Android. Okay, I hope that was useful. Let's go to the next page, Learning English Teens. I just want to apologize very quickly because I can't actually see the comments as I'm showing the website. So I will set aside 2 or 3 minutes at the end to answer some questions. Okay. Now let's look at Learning English Teens. Again, you can register. You have the different tabs at the top. So for example, courses. If you feel that your teen needs some extra support, they can register to study English online as part of the English Online platform. So we have an online tutoring. Okay, this is not free, but it is a very reasonable price. You can book a trial lesson for just $1. And here's some information on the Secondary Plus course. If your child lives in British Council, if the teenager lives in Mexico City, they can study Secondary Plus with us at the British Council. Then it's divided into skills, grammar, vocabulary. So you have, for example, I think the teens that I know need some extra support with speaking. So let's look at speaking. Here it is divided by level. So A1, A2, B1, B2, etc. I know some teens who don't like speaking in English because they don't feel confident, they don't feel safe, they don't feel happy with their language. So let's look at some lessons focused on teens at A1 level. Meeting people. So first, you have the instructions. You watch the video. There's a video of 2 teens presenting, introducing themselves.
Hello. Hi. Are you okay? You look lost. Yeah. I'm new at this school.
Okay. So just to show you, it's very good. It's set in a real world type context, and there's extra support for students to listen and read at the same time. Then they have comprehension questions, checking your understanding. A succession of different activities to ensure comprehension. And then students can interact, teenagers can interact after they have done the task. Okay. Of course, there's grammar, vocabulary, both very important. Let's look at, so it's divided by level. So let's have a look at a slightly higher level this time. We've got B1 to B2 grammar. Let's have a look at conditionals. Oh, those difficult conditionals. Here is a video which presents the language in context so that students can see how it's used in real life. You have information, the transcript. You have information on the different tenses. So I'm scrolling down very quickly, and then some grammar to practice. Again, this can all be downloaded if necessary. So for example, here's the activities, here's the transcript. If, for example, your internet connection is not very good, you can download it to review. There's also vocabulary, information about exams. So for example, grammar and vocabulary exams. It gives you tips and advice for grammar and vocabulary tests, how teenagers can do better at them. Some tips. So for example, learning new grammar exercise types. So for example, with me, I was a teacher for CAE preparation. I found some of those question types quite difficult. So you have the different types here. For example, sentence transformation. I found that very, very difficult. So Steven Spielberg directed Jurassic Park, Steven Spielberg, and you got the answer. So give some tips about how to do it. Read the instructions, look at the first sentence, understand it. Can you identify the grammar use, etc.? And then there's some practice. Okay, so if you have some teenagers in your group who need to practice for first certificate or for Cambridge Advanced, there are some tips there. There's also information there's also activities that are less focused on learning. So for example, there's a YouTuber zone. British Council Learning English teams have their own YouTubers. So you can watch a blog, you can watch a YouTube video on a specific topic delivered by a teen. So for example, 3 steps to a successful blog. This is Sophia, who delivers a talk about writing a blog. There's the video, and again, there's some transcript, worksheet and downloads. In this section, there's no exercises because this is just for students to engage with. And then there are comments. So teens can engage, they can interact. And finally, blogs. So blogs that students might like to read to practice their reading, but also because they find them interesting. Me, I'm a big music lover. I love music. Let's see what blogs there are about music. As you can see here, the blogs are written by young people from the UK, and they are selected by the British Council to share their experiences. Beatbox. I love beatboxers. Let's read a blog about beatboxers. So here's the text about beatboxing and discussion. Again, this is not an area very focused on active learning. It's more just practice, passive learning for teens to read and to engage and to find something that they're interested in. So finally, let's move on to Learn English Adults. These are 3 different websites. So here for adults, we have information on the online courses. So British Council have online courses. There's called English Online. They're very reasonable prices and very complete courses. There is, as English Online, you can study in a group. You can have a private personal tutor, and you can practice for things like IELTS. There's also self-study online courses. This is without a teacher, and it's 50% off. Again, there's also practice for skills, grammar, vocabulary, business English, general English. So let's have a look. Previously, we looked at speaking. Let's have a look at listening. I need some listening practice. Here, what we can do is we can divide it by the level. My English is quite good, I think. So let me check C1 listening. Here you choose a relevant lesson, excuse me. So for example, now in my job, I'm holding more meetings and I've been given more responsibilities to lead projects. So you have the lesson, the listening. We don't need to listen to it.
This recording is from the British Council. Thanks everyone for coming to this project meeting. I know we're all working cross-functionally on this project, but...
So there you go, you have the audio. This time there's no video because this is focusing on practicing your listening skills. We've got the transcript and activities. Okay, the same for reading, writing and speaking. We've also got grammar. Again, it's been divided into levels. So A1 to A2, B1 to B2, and a grammar reference. So you don't even need a dictionary anymore. You can go here for grammar reference. Let's have a look at the higher levels. What do I need to practice? I'm B2, so let's have a look. Oh, sorry, that's information on the level, excuse me. I don't know how to use in spite of, despite, although, even though, and though. These are a bit tricky, right? So again, there is the language presented in context, a model for students to be able to follow, And then there are grammar practice activities to consolidate understanding. Okay. We also have vocabulary games for adults. Why not? Us adults need a bit of fun as well, right? So choosing a game. Word shake. This is my favorite one. How many points can you get in 3 minutes? So you get, this is a bit like the game Boggle. I don't know if Boggle is popular in Mexico. It's very popular in England, at least where I was from. You get the words and you have to find as many words as you can. Okay, so for example, toe. There we go. Yeah. Hope, etc. Okay, so games for you to practice as well. There's also business English and general English are divided into context. Business magazines, your hired podcasts, corporate and training assessments, so how to prepare for corporate exams. General English for those who don't necessarily need it for work, but they want just to practice. Information on all the different levels. Here, there is an online English level test, which is completely free. You can take this, anybody can take this once they've registered, and they can find out their English level. Then there are some tips about how to improve it. So let's have a look at this. So if you're very, very busy, how do you improve reading and writing? How to improve your English vocabulary, etc. Tips for how to improve. And also community events. So as I mentioned yesterday, there are webinars and events for people who want to practice. So anybody can attend them. They're free. So for example, here's a webinar on grammar, on wishes and regrets. Oh, sorry, I'm not registered. I registered earlier, but I think I got locked out. But you can watch the complete webinar here, and you can also remain informed for new webinars which are coming out. Okay. Yes, so there we go. I think I've covered everything. I hope you found that useful. I'm just going to return now. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Thank you very much. So I hope you found that useful. As you can see, there are huge amounts of activities available for learners of English, whether they be children, teens, and adults. And there's lots of different things. You can provide information to your students. You can suggest, give them ideas for how to use it. And you can even, when I teach, I often set activities on the website for homework, because I think it's a very good way to encourage students to engage with the website and to practice. I can see some people already use it, so that's great, excellent. Just before I finish, you may be able to see on the screen, it says learn more about BBELT 2023. BBELT is the best and brightest in English language teaching. It is a conference for English language educators, and not only teachers, but also teacher trainers, decision makers, coordinators, all people involved in the industry. And it is every February of every year. Probably you've heard of it. It's very famous. It's very prestigious. We get speakers from all around the world delivering in this conference. And it's a great place not only to learn, not only to find out what the most up-to-date information and topics are in the industry, not only to present if you're interested yourself, but also to network, to meet people in the same industry, to meet people in different schools, to build a better community for learning. In previous years, we've had very, very famous speakers. For example, Jamie Keddy spoke a couple of years ago. He's one of my favorites on YouTube storytelling. Lots of great speakers. So I highly recommend it. If you're interested in attending this conference, right now there is a discount. If you register in October, where there's only a few days left, if you register as a group, so more than one person, the cost is 800 pesos per person. Individually, it's 855. After that, from November to the November the 23rd, that increases to 12,000 for a group. 1,200 for a group and 1,500 individually. And those are the discounts. It's 2 days of 3 days of very, very packed learning. So if you're interested, you can find out more information on the website. So that's the end of it, of my talk. Thank you very much for joining. I hope you found it useful. And yeah, thank you very much. I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Milton. And thanks again to the British Council for all of those great resources that are available for us, for all the teachers around the world. Once again, thank you. All right, teachers, well, remember that all the sessions delivered this week will be available on demand using the same link. And I have to say something. As some of you noticed, and I must say congratulations, you did pay attention. The last question on the questionnaire has a discrepancy. You are all right. The answer is 44, but please mark the option that says 42. We have posted the chat of the link. Make sure you register and you get your attendance. Thank you very much, everyone. I am so happy that we could share this afternoon together. And remember, knowledge is power. Thank you, and we'll see you tomorrow.